Spooky Story Time Trucker Folklore Edition. So I've been posting a few trucker spooky stories, and a family friend is a hauler, I guess. He drives this big rig and he hauls many vehicles on top of that truck. He was getting his hair cut by my husband, and we were talking about some of the videos that I was posting, and he says, "Have you heard of the legend of the black dog?" I'm not a trucker. I don't know about any of that. And I was like, no, what is it? Spill the tea. So obviously truckers are exhausted. They drive for hours and hours and hours. And the trucker folklore legend says that once you've been driving for a very long time and you see the black dog, it means to stop driving immediately. Legend has it that this is kind of like a warning that you are done, your body is done, and you need to pull over to rest, or you won't see your next stop. It is said that this is a very large, scary, grim looking dog, and first it kind of runs towards your truck to catch your attention. Warning number one. Number two, if you don't stop and you continue to drive, it is said that you can see it on your rearview mirror running after you. And the third time, it is now running beside you. And it is said that once it catches up to you, you're done. So the legend says that if truckers see this black dog, they stop immediately. They will pull over to rest, to eat, to sleep. And essentially, this large black dog is said to be served as a warning. Has anyone ever heard of the legend of the black dog? Because this is the first time that I hear about it. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this is sort of an omen of bad things? Or do you think that this is a protector of some sort? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you guys like all things spooky, all things scary, paranormal, and true crime, please make sure you follow.
This spooky scary story time came from someone named Marla, and she said she required an actual exorcism after doing a ritual called Close the Circle, Open the Door, and this was meant to heighten her awareness and tap in with her psychic and spiritual gifts. She said she's not trying to scare anyone, she's not trying to convince anyone, she just wanted to share her experience because she thought it might be interesting to some of you. So she said this took place in Europe, where she was living at the time, and this took place about 16 years ago, and at the time she approached everything with a very scientific mindset. She was also having like a spiritual awakening of sorts. Like she would notice all these coincidences and she would try to make sense of them, but she would try to approach them from a rational standpoint, using logic, trying to explain these synchronicities away. But over time, when these things kept happening over and over and over again, she was like, there's something else going on. That's when she meets this girl named Alana, and meeting Alana was sort of a coincidence in and of itself because Alana was basically described as a witch. Marla said she would describe her as a good one. She read tarot cards, she could read people energetically, and had this incredible intuition. Also had this knack for predicting events that would later come to fruition, and Marla says this really was confirmed for her when Alana tells her one day, "You're going to go study abroad, aren't you?" And Marla's like, "No, my university already denied my application. Like, I've been trying, but I really want to, but it's not going to happen." And Alana is insistent. She's like, "No, you're going to go. Like, you should put in another application." And Marla's like, "Okay, so what did she have to lose, right?" Like, she wanted to go anyway. So she puts in this application, gets denied, and she knows that studying abroad is going to be impossible for her. Anna's insistent. She's like, "No, you're going to go. Like, I'm sure of it." And Marla said she was actually getting mad at her because she was like, "Why won't she let this go? Like, it's already a disappointment enough. I don't need anybody telling me I'm going to go when I know I'm not going to do something." But later she was sent a notice in the mail saying a mistake had been made and she was approved to go study internationally. She said that was the moment she really started listening to Alana, and she starts asking Alana more questions. She's like, "How did you know I was going to go?" And Alana's like, "Listen, these powers are not reserved for certain people. Like, everyone has this ability." Basically just tells her you have to have this inner sensitivity and certain like inner strength in order to be able to manage and like perceive these abilities. I was like, "I can see that you already have that ability in you, but honestly, I don't know if you're the type of person that would be able to handle it." Tells her, "I don't think you would be able to fully accept it." And this kind of irritates Marla because she's like, "What do you mean I wouldn't be able to perceive it?" Because she's always had an interest in these things. She had had certain experiences throughout her life of like shadows or like perceptions of somebody looking at her that she was always curious about, but really never had an explanation for. She asked Alana, like, "Well, how can I strengthen this ability?" And Alana's like, "Well, the simplest way to do it is to do this ritual, and it's 5 steps. Alana tells Marla that the first 4 steps are related to the elements and that she must spend a full day close to one of these elements studying and meditating. So, for example, the first day is meditating on water near a river. The second day is focused on earth, and you have to go and sit in an open field, and so on and so forth. Alana tells her that the fifth and final step is a ritual that she will have to do with her in her presence, and it's meant to close the circle and open the door. But before getting to the fifth step, after completing the first four steps, Marla said she felt a change. She started seeing shadows out of the corner of her eye. She saw people who weren't there, and anytime she passed a crossroads, she would see a black figure standing there, and she felt deeply unsettled by this, and she ends up telling Alana she's not ready for the fifth step. Marla says this feeling was deep. She knew something wasn't right. And that's when Alana tells her about this dream that she had about Marla. And she says, yeah, it was you, but it wasn't you. It was some other figure wearing your face. Of course, this freaks Marla out. And she's like, what do you mean it was wearing my face? Like, what was it? Was it bad? And Alana's like, no, 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 it wasn't bad. It was warning me that you were in danger. For that reason, Alana says, I don't think we should go through with the fifth step with the ritual anymore. I don't think you need to close the circle and open the door because I think the door is already slightly open. From that moment on, Marla says that something was not right. She said she felt like something was haunting her house, not by something evil, but by something tormented. It frightened her cats. It kicked the wall above her bed while she slept. It turned music on. It opened cabinets. Small things, one after the other. And Marla was super freaked out by this. So she goes to Alana. She's like, what do I do? And Alana's like, you need to pray. And Marla wanted to be clear here. She doesn't mean pray but to any specific religion because she said that no religion is right or wrong. She said she believes that every religious ritual is valid. Every religious prayer is valid as long as it's directed to something good. But I also don't want to turn people off by when I say prayer because it can also mean like a wish or a benevolent thought. She said, listening to Alana's advice, she started praying and everything calmed down. But then she started dating a guy and prayer became secondary. She got busy, and that's where she says she messed up because she had just kind of forgotten to pray, thinking that whatever she was trying to cast out was already cast out with any more work on her part. So she says one night she got home, she was home alone. She goes upstairs, closes the bathroom door, and starts taking off her makeup and getting ready for bed. Cat's in the bathroom with her, right? So then she says she's just taking off her makeup, brushing her teeth, when she hears something large sounding run violently up the stairs and starts scratching at the bathroom door. She said she spent the entire night in the bathroom, locked inside, praying until daylight came because she was too afraid to leave. And this kind of activity continued on for years. She felt tormented by something she couldn't see, but she continued seeing these dark figures anytime she passed a crossroads. That she had so many horrifying experiences that terrified her, but she couldn't possibly go into all of them. But an important one comes years later. Her father is diagnosed with cancer, hospitalized and unable to get out of bed. And she said she and her father have always had a special bond. He and her mother were always the most important people in her life. So while her father is in the hospital, she's spending a lot of time in her mom's house, sleeping in the same bed with her mother, trying to comfort her mother. And it's this one night that she has an incredibly realistic dream where she's at her grandmother's house studying, and her father walks in the kitchen and he gets something out of the refrigerator to eat. That she remembers in the dream she was incredibly shocked that he was standing up, and so she's like, you're risking like injuring yourself, you have to get back in bed, you have to lay down. And he just looks at her and very calmly says, I can get better, right? You just have to say yes. I can come back home, but you just have to say yes. And she said in that moment she realized that this figure she was talking to in her dream was not her father, and she screamed and woke herself up, woke her mother up. But as she was waking up from that nightmare, she saw his face change in the dream. She was telling him he wasn't welcome. As she's coming out of this dream, she sees this black figure standing near the end of the bed, and she threw the covers over her mother and she starts screaming at this figure. It needs to leave. It's not welcome. She says it disappeared. And so then she calls Alana and she's like, I have to tell you about this dream I had. I need you to tell me what it means. And she starts telling her, and Alana's like, that was the same entity that I saw years earlier in my dream wearing your face. Because you've shown incredible strength by not giving into it, but like I think you need more help than I can give you. And so reluctantly Marla tells everything that she's been doing to her mom, and her mom's like, it's okay, we're going to get this figured out. And Marla said that was a huge relief because she was worried about telling her mom about all the things that she had been seeing and experiencing, because she didn't want her mom to think that she was crazy, because her mom had always been a skeptic. Her mother was incredibly loving, incredibly understanding, and even though she had never really been a religious person, through some acquaintances she managed to contact someone who could perform exorcisms. Says the priest came to the house and he stood over her as she lay down and he prayed over her. And she says she doesn't know because she kind of blacked out when she went under, but everybody else tells her that she started talking as he was praying. She was whispering. She wasn't actually saying words loudly, so nobody could make out what she was saying. But when the priest asks, someone's in there, her mouth whispers yes. She comes out of it. The priest tells her that she was in the phase before demonic possession, and that by giving that thing in her dream a yes, it would have been inviting it in. There were many other episodes, but she wants to make it clear that before thinking or jumping to the supernatural, she always tries to explain things rationally and doubting her own mental stability. However, she does believe sometimes, not always, certain mental illnesses were doors opened by people who couldn't manage what was on the other side. She said, my door is still slightly open, and she said that she no longer tries to explore the unknown as much as she did 15, 16 years ago. She's no longer as curious, and she said whenever something does manage to sneak through, she tries to manage it calmly and peacefully. She said, my final advice to anyone who liked this story is this: pray and always think toward good. Every thought of hatred is food for what lives on the other side of that door, and the thing that lives on the other side of that door should never be allowed to grow strong enough to push through. Spooky Scary Storytime, the series where we share listeners' allegedly true stories about the creepiest or most unbelievable things that they've never shared before. If you have a story, we would love to hear it.
This is a story time about why you shouldn't trust girls just because they're girls, okay? I know this is already like universal knowledge, but this is another reason why. So boom, I go to New York City with my friend Kay. I'm gonna call her Kay because I don't want to like expose who this is, but whatever. She's like one of my literal day ones. I have a few, so if you know me, you don't technically know who this is about unless you are her. We've been best friends forever. And Kay had this newer friend, and I'm gonna call her Bree. Like I said, I'm not using real names here, so Bree. Now, I had never met Bree before, but I'd heard about her, obviously, because Kay was my best friend. Of course, she'd yap about her, too. Best friends never get withheld secrets. I heard that she was, like, spiritual and, like, into witchy stuff, which is fine, because, like, I'm spiritual in that kind of sense, too, but I also don't practice witchcraft or anything like that. I was thinking, okay, she's, like, she's on our level. She's gonna be fine. Like, I'm gonna like her. Like, I'm all about those vibes. I have tarot cards back there. Like, you know? I will say the second I met Bree, it felt weird. Like, something felt off, you know? Like, she kind of gave off this, like, cold energy, and, like, it almost sent my body into, like, a fight or flight for seemingly no reason. I noticed right off the bat, though, that she hugged my friend, Kay, like, extra fucking tight. She was almost being, like, a possessive boyfriend. You know what I mean? Like, weird vibes. She was looking over Kay's shoulder as she was doing this, staring into my soul, bro. Like, she didn't even smile at me. I was like, nothing. She just, I'm like, okay, girl, what the fuck? Then she lets go from the hug finally, and she comes over to me with Kay, and like, Kay's all excited that we're finally meeting, and Bree goes, oh, you're the best friend. Like, girl, what? Like, literally in that tone, I can't make this shit up. Like, she had a tone about her that was like, yeah, I've heard about you and I don't like you, like, blah, 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 blah. So whatever, I'm just being normal, and I'm like, yay, hey, I'm Haley, nice to meet you. Being normal, nice, friendly. Even though I'm picking up on this energy, like, she already doesn't fuck with me. She's literally staring at me like I'm some kind of cockroach that she saw on the fucking sidewalk. Like, I'm a fucking New York City street rat, bro. Whatever, everything keeps moving and grooving, so we end up going into the city. We're walking around, we're getting ready to, like, go out for the night. We're all high vibes, we're all excited. Me and Kay seem very excited anyways. But Bree's energy just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse all night long. Like, she was kind of like being the watcher of the group. Like, she was like making herself the third wheel, if you know what I mean. Like, she was just being really quiet and kind of just observing us. And she kept doing those like little slick comments like, oh, so you and Kay are really close, huh? Like, here and there, like, to like butt in on the conversation or whatever. It was really fucking weird. Whatever, we go to the hotel, we get all dressed up, all cute. I remember I was wearing this, like, it was this kind of color. It was super fucking cute. It was a cute little tight thing. Whatever, that's not even what matters. But I like to try to remember from this night because of how fucked she made it. Whatever, we get to the club. It's packed, it's hot as fuck in there. Like, the vibes are there. We're ready, we're bumping, we're going. But the fucking second we get in there, this bitch grabs Kay's hand, like, tight, like, hard. Like, I'm telling you, like an abusive fucking boyfriend. And she goes, don't wander. And I said, excuse me? She's coming everywhere with me in this fucking place. Like, she ain't no fucking toddler in a zoo. Who the fuck are you? We all start dancing on the dance floor after this little incident, whatever the fuck. And every time that I try to dance with my friend, she starts to like put herself in between and like grind up on her. I'm like, bitch, how is my friend not noticing this? I think she's already wasted. I don't know why she's not noticing. Maybe this is normal behavior with Bree. But like I said, this is my first time ever meeting this girl, so I had no idea what she'd ever been like around my friend. Or like what kind of relationship dynamic that they had other than like what she had told me so far. Also interrupt every single time that I would try to fucking say anything to my friend, dude. Oh, that was pissing me off. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when somebody interrupts me when I'm trying to say something. Oh, it's happened to me my whole life. I hate when people talk over me. Her behavior was giving like major possession vibes. Like, this is mine. She's my friend now. Fuck you. Get out of my circle. Like, you know, like she was not happy I was there. After a while of this like weirdness of her like touching my friend and like being all near my friend and whatever, I'm like, I'm just gonna go to the fucking bathroom. So I get up and go to the bathroom, and Kay's like, I'll come with you. Bree just flat out goes, no. Oh, what the fuck do you mean, no? Sorry, okay, my phone just like fucked up because it got overheated. So let me just keep telling the story. I had to move windows. I don't even remember where I was. Right, okay, so I go into the bathroom, and Kay wants to come with me, and Bree literally just flat out says, fucking no. And I'm like, what do you mean no? Like, why why are you trying to manage her like this? Like, what the fuck is going on? And I remember my friend actually turning around at this time being like, Brie, what are you talking about? Like, why? What? And this bitch flat out goes, right in front of me too. I cannot make this shit fucking up. Right in front of me, she goes, I don't want her to be alone with you. What do you think, we're gonna go like suck each other off in the fucking bathroom stall right now, bitch? I mean, maybe because my friend is hot. I don't know, maybe. But I'm looking over at Kay and I'm like, are you, like, the look on my face is like, are you hearing this? Are you actually fucking hearing this and like letting this slide right now? And Kay is just kind of awkwardly going like, you're just kidding, right? I'm like, this is not really how my friend would normally act. Like, she's somebody who would throat punch somebody for this shit. I don't know why she was like, you know? Brie wasn't fucking laughing. She wasn't kidding. This was like, she was actually serious. And I'm like, I knew she was serious. I could feel her energy. So I'm like, okay, why are you trying to laugh this off? Like, she is actually serious. But I end up just like, you know, kind of trying to defuse the drama because we are in New York City together. We have to stay at a hotel together. So I just go to the bathroom by myself. I'm like, you stay here with your fucking little weird friend. I don't know. You stay here. I'll be right back. I need to go. I really needed to pee, actually. So I go in the bathroom, I do my thing, and then I come back out, and I can't find Kay or Brie anywhere. So naturally, I'm like, where the frig is my best friend? Where is she? So I'm weaving through the crowd trying to find them. So I finally spot Brie and Kay over in this, like, in the back corner, like, where kind of, like, nobody really was. It was, like, by the trash. In the back, where the lights really were dimmed, you know, weird vibes back there. You don't want to go back there when you're in the club, you know what I mean? And the first thing that I noticed, because I'm looking for my friend, like, I'm looking at her when I find her. I'm not looking at that fucking bitch, whatever. The first thing that I noticed is that she looked dazed, like she was almost confused. Like, her face is completely blank, and Brie is standing like centimeters from her face. Like, so first I'm like, oh my god, maybe like my friend is crying and like she's trying to comfort her and like be a good friend. But then I noticed that she was kind of like rocking, like literally swaying back and forth, and her lips were moving so fast. Like Brie's lips were moving like she was speaking in some kind of tongue. I don't know. So I walk over there and I'm like, Kay, are you okay? And dude, I shit you not, Brie like snaps her neck to look at me. Like, it was like, Jesus, bitch. And she goes, she's fine. And I'm like, bitch, no the fuck, obviously she's not fine. What are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, I'm just protecting her. And I'm like, protecting her from fucking who? From what? We're at the club. So then I snatch Kay by the arm, because at this point I'm like fucking done. And I'm like, come to the bathroom with me. And then she like snaps, like she's like coming out of like some kind of trance or like some kind of daze. And she like lazily is like, oh yeah, let's go to the bathroom. So as we're walking away, I kind of turn around and look over my shoulder back at Brie, and she's like glaring at me. Like, if looks could kill, I'd be fucking dead. So we're in the bathroom and I'm like, Kay, your friend is acting really scary. Like, what's going on here? She's like, yeah, I know, you know, she's just really intense. Like, this is just how she acts. And I'm like, girl, no, like something was really off about that altercation back there. Like, what was she whispering to you? It was like she was doing some sort of like ritual fucking practice. I don't know. Like, she was like chanting something. She was saying something to you that was making you all weird. And I remember she went quiet and she goes, yeah, well, something weird did kind of happen before we left. Like, she asked me for a lock of my hair. And I'm like, what, bitch? What? Did you give it to her? And she said, well, yeah, because I like, what do you mean, well, yeah? What do you mean, well, yeah? So she gave her a fucking lock of her hair. Okay, first of all, she knows that she's a witchy kind of person. So, like, you should have known that, like, that was gonna, I don't know, man. And she was like, yeah, well, she told me that it was gonna be for a spell for protection. I thought she was just gonna like, protect me, you know? And I'm like, okay, we've gotta go. Like, we have to leave. We're not staying here any longer. This is absolutely insane. We can't do this. Come back for part 2, though, because I'm running out of time. I'll tell you about, like, what happened when we get to the hotel room, because that's when, like, the really crazy shit actually happens. And, like, I'm talking crazy, I mean, like, scary. Dude, I'll see you at part 2, because I'm gonna do it like right now. Okay, y'all, this is part 2 of my story time about why you should not trust girls just because they're girls. If you haven't seen part 1, you kind of have to see part 1 to really understand what's gonna happen, but I guess you don't have to if you don't want to. I'm not gonna force you to. So boom, we leave the club, right? And me and Kay are outside shaking. Not because it's cold, but because we felt the energy. We knew that the energy was off. She had finally snapped fully out of her trance, and we were both on the same level, at least for now. And whatever, so we have to go back to the hotel all together, because keep in mind, mind, we're in New York City. That's like 6 to 7 hours away from our home. Like, we can't just go back to our house, you know? It's not a situation where we can just be like, yeah, let's dip and go. We're kind of committed. We're kind of stuck. Like, I forgot to mention at the end of part 1 that Bree left the club after I had dragged my friend Kay into the bathroom. And like, we made all of these revelations together, right? So we get back to the hotel and we're like trying to calm ourselves down because we know that Bree is still there. So when we get there, for whatever reason, Bree is in the lobby. And there's Bree just standing there like literally nothing ever happened. Like, nothing happened at the club. She was completely normal and fine. So in my head, I'm like, this is so not normal. But we go up to the room anyways, because what other choice do we have? We've got no extra money to like pay for anything separate. You know, I'm not going to get into that aspect or else this is going to be way too long. The second we get inside our hotel room, Bree goes, nobody touch anything. I was like, girl, what now? So I look at Kay and I'm like, hello? And she looks at me and she's like, I don't know. And Bree goes, I'm going to cleanse the room. Which, okay, to each their own. I mean, I know that people do that. But I swear to God, y'all, she takes out this whole purse, like full of all of this witchy stuff. Like, I'm not saying like creepy witchy stuff, like skull and bones and stuff, but I mean like there's herbs and like candles and like little crystals and things like that. She starts taking stuff out of it and she pulls out some candles, some like oils, little herbs that are like wrapped up in something. I don't know what it was. And then she pulled out like this string or like this twine or something. And I'm standing there like, oh, she came prepared, okay. Like, you packed this in advance. This was like something you thought about. She lights the candle and she starts walking around the room whispering. I'm like, I've never seen anybody cleanse a fucking room like this. She's walking around the room whispering. I'm trying to be chill because we are in a hotel room 6 to 7 hours away from home with a freaking, I don't know, but my skin is crawling. Even Kay was getting uncomfortable because she was like, Bree, you don't have to do all that. You don't have to do that. And she literally flat out goes, no, I do. Like, serious face, flat monotone voice and all. I can't make this up, bitch. And then she goes, everybody give me something personal. What? Like, girl, what do you mean? Like, my social security number? What more do you want from me? So Kay blurts out, she's like, what do you mean by that? And Bree goes, I don't know, like a small hair tie, like a clip, like ring, a necklace, and something that it belongs to you. Immediately no. I said, no, I'm not doing that. Girl, no, I'm not doing that. She looks at me, she turns to me, she goes, why? Girl, what do you mean, why? Fuck do you mean, why? Like, because I don't fucking want to. That's why. And she does this, like, dry little fucking horse laugh, and she's like, okay, noted. So then, for whatever fucking reason, Kay gives her a bracelet. I'm like, dude, we just talked about this. What are you doing? Looking back, honestly, I think she probably already had this girl under a trance. Like, she's like bound herself to her or something. Bree puts the bracelet on the bed next to the candle, and then she looks back at me and she goes, as if she's reading my fucking mind, because I'm like thinking, I'm not going to give you anything of mine, so don't even ask me. And she goes, it's okay, I already have enough, don't worry. What do you mean? Tell me what you mean right now. What do you mean? So like, now I'm starting to feel actual panic because I'm like, what do you mean you have enough? Because like, I thought you said you needed something for both of us. What do you have of mine? Like my DNA? What do you mean? And I swear to God, again, as if she's reading my mind, she goes, you shed everywhere. Bro, I wanted to fucking levitate out of the fucking universe. And she was right. She's right. I do shed everywhere. My husband complains all the time. So whatever. Bree sits on the floor after that. Like crisscross applesauce on the floor. She sets up all of her stuff and then she takes Kay's bracelet and puts it on the twine, right? So she like connected between these two candles. So then she makes Kay like come sit down in the little circle with her, right? Not even me. She didn't invite me in. She just wanted Kay. And she's like, I'm gonna do this to protect you. Again, with this weird protection shit. And then she started saying weird things like, I'm gonna protect you, like, I'm yours, you're mine, only me, only you, I keep you. That was the weirdest one for me. I said, what? At this point, at the knowledge that I had about, like, you know, spiritual practices and stuff like that, I knew she was putting a spell on my friend. So I cut her off mid-sentence and I said, Kay, stop. I grab her by the arm and I pull her out. This bitch literally looks at me and said, don't interrupt. Like, just like that. Don't interrupt. And I shit you not, the second I pulled Kay out of the circle, the flames went up like, whoosh. Like she put gasoline on it. It was woof. There was no air current. There was no air current. I mean, there could have been a little bit of an air current from me pulling her, but I think that would have just made the candle flicker, not go up in flames, right? So me and Kay flee the room and we run out to the lobby. We didn't even grab any of our stuff, but Kay was kind of protesting like, hey, I need to go grab my bag. Like, I need my things. But I was like, no, girl, we're not going back. We're going to the lobby right now. We're not dealing with that right now. Once we got down there, Kay was kind of like in another one of her little dazes, and she was like, I don't really feel right. I don't feel good. And this was not normal for her. She was a feisty girl. She is a feisty girl. So then Kay's phone starts ringing, and it's like an unknown number, no caller ID kind of phone. And when she picks it up, it's Bree, and she goes, come back upstairs now. Hangs up immediately. We hang up immediately. We're done. We're like, no, no, no. And Kay goes, she does this shit on purpose. And I'm like, I know. I've noticed. Like, this bitch is not just weird at this point. She's dangerous. So boom, Kay's phone starts ringing again. It's the no caller ID number, unknown, whatever number. We let it ring over and over and over and over and over again because we knew who it was. We knew what she was going to be doing. Finally, after literally like the 10th time she called, we finally picked up, and at first it sounded like Bree, but then it turned into like this mechanical, like demonic, like, I don't even know how to explain it. I really don't know how to explain it. But it was like this crackly, like demonic voice, you know what I mean? Like kind of like almost it had layers to it. And she said, you don't need her. You don't need her. And bro, when I tell you I'm like about to shit my pants, I'm about to shit my fucking pants at this point. This is so far beyond you are just a weird girl. So we hang up the phone immediately, and then everything goes silent. We're sitting there like heavy breathing with each other, like really not knowing what to do, when all of a sudden full blackout. Full blackout. Only the red emergency lights were on. And I know some people are gonna be like, oh, you know, it was just like a power outage. Things like that in New York City happen all the time. Maybe, but it didn't feel like that. Like, it just got dead quiet. Like, unnaturally quiet. Scary kind of quiet. And then I shit you fucking not, the elevator dings. Dude, this is like the scariest thing ever because we're watching from the darkness and the doors just open slowly like elevator doors do. I shit you not, it's Bree standing there. Bro, like in the dim light of the red emergency lights inside this dark ass elevator in this dark ass room. So we're all just kind of like standing there staring back and forth at each other, like not really knowing what's gonna happen next, not knowing what the next move is gonna be. And then I start to hear whispering, like the same kind of whispering that she was doing to Kay at the club and upstairs when she was doing her weird little ritual. So I grab Kay's arm and we leave. We go out to the streets of New York City, which we were trying to avoid doing because we know how dangerous New York City is, but this kind of danger seemed a little bit different and a little bit more scary than anything that we could have encountered on the streets. But we took our chances on the streets. And like I said, we didn't have a lot of money because like we had like budgeted all of our shit to even go there and like do what we were doing. So we ended up actually finding really cheap train tickets that we could take back to our home. So we bought, instead of using like the money that we had saved for food, instead of using it for the food and like the pastries and stuff we were going to go buy, we wanted to go get those cool fucking pastries. But instead we used that money for train tickets to get back home because we left her there. And we haven't spoken to her since then. And since then, Kay has done like her own protection on her own self, and she's educated herself, and I've educated myself more on things like that. So like, wild, I don't know, you just can't trust people. You can't trust people because apparently she was completely normal with Kay alone. And then she met me and like went all freak psychopath because she thought that Kay was her best friend. Weird shit. So just be careful and use your discernment and be careful.
So when my daughter was like 10 years old, she really got into like crystals and learning about them and like healing with crystals. So we had one on vacation, and I remember it was Kings Beach. So we're on the lake, on the beach or whatever. And so she goes to the store with her dad, and I stay behind with her brothers, and we're like making sandcastles or whatever. And I see this man approaching me, but I'm like surrounded by other people, so I'm not really scared. And this man's wearing like, I can't forget what he's wearing. He's wearing brown cargo shorts and a brown tennis shirt, but he looked like a wizard to me. Like, he had a long beard, like it was scruffy, and just like his whole appearance, I can't explain it. To me, honestly, it was like I'm seeing a wizard looking like guy. And so he approaches me, And there's like more people obviously on the beach, but he comes up to me and he's like, oh, I'm just walking around the beach looking for some crystals. Are you into that kind of stuff? And I remember I had like a crystal pendant hanging, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, my daughter's really into it. And he's like, oh yeah, your daughter. He's like, yeah, she really likes crystals. She's learning how to heal with them. Like, he starts explaining shit about my daughter that obviously I haven't told him. And he's like, yeah, you know, she has like a sixth sense. You should really like apoyarla, like support her. Sorry. You should really support her in this. He said, because you can heal with crystals. Like, there's so many things you can do with them. So he's like, yeah, I really support her in this because she can do great things. I can see it like in her future that she's going to do great things if she continues this journey. But try to keep her on that path, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of started freaking me out by this point, because I'm like, oh, okay, what the fuck, are you like watching me from somewhere, like seeing this? Anyways, so after he says all that, and then he's like showing me the crystals he's collected or that he has, and then I think he kind of notices that, okay, I'm done conversating with you now. So he's like, okay, take care, blah, blah. And he starts walking away slowly. On the beach where we're at, like, it would be hard. It would have like been hard for him to just like walk away and like disappear where I can't see him anymore. But when my daughter gets there, it's like 30 seconds literally after this guy walks away from me. And I'm like looking around, like trying to find him so I can tell my daughter, like, hey dude, like this guy just came over and he had all these crystals and he was talking about them and telling her everything, right? But I'm like looking around trying to see him. He's like nowhere to be found. And it's like where the fuck did he just disappear or something? And so then, you know, I tell my daughter everything, and then she continues like to really like crystals and all this stuff. And I always get this pain on my knee, right? I've had knee pains since I can remember. So then like she tells me like, oh mom, well there is healing, like there is crystals that heal. How about we just like try to put the crystals on your knee and see like if it can help take the pain away? Because I was like in real bad pain. Like I couldn't walk on my knee because it hurt so bad. And I, even like after I took like painkillers and like I would rub all kinds of ointments on it, blah, blah, it wasn't going away. So then I'm like, screw it, let's go. I went and lay down on her bed, and she puts like these crystals literally on my knee, and I'm laying there, and she's just like, we're talking, just letting, I guess, the crystals do their thing. Like, I mean, I don't really know. I just like how they look like amethyst and all that. Anyways, so we're laying there, and these crystals start literally shaking on my knee. And I look down and I look at her and I'm like, are you seeing this? When it stops, we're a little freaked out, you know? But then, like, I kid you not, like, the pain is gone. I was just like, I don't know, remembering that, and how I found it curious and scary how, like, he said for her to continue pursuing that, and how, like, she had, like, a sixth sense. Do you guys have any experience with crystals, or has had anything crazy like that happen? If so, let me know in the comments.
This girl sent me an email saying that when she was younger, she used to see a lady in her room with a bent neck holding a Bible. This story, there are things in this story. I'm alone right now. Let's just put it this way. I'm alone right now, and I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight. So when Kelsey was 5 years old, she shared a room with her little sister, and they had these bunk beds, and they were white, and they were metal. So one day, she decides that she's going to go to sleep early. So she goes into her room, she lays in her bed, and she decides to go to sleep. So after she falls asleep, she has this nightmare. And in this nightmare, she is laying in bed, and with the same bed that she's laying in now, everything looks the same, and she looks over, and right next to her, sitting right next to her, is this woman, and she's soaked in, let's say, a red substance, okay? And she's just whimpering, and she's holding this giant book. As soon as she sees this woman, she wakes up, like, immediately, and she is like, okay, that was a really scary nightmare, that was absolutely terrifying, when suddenly she just gets cold, like ice
cold. She's mainly feeling it on the back of her neck, but she feels it on her whole entire body. And then she feels like this force, like this invisible force just hit her. Now she was on the top bunk, so there was really no way for her to get down without having to like climb down the bunk. So she just laid there for the rest of the night. The next week, the same thing happens. She goes to bed early, she falls asleep, and she has the same exact nightmare. Except for this time, when she wakes up, she feels something on her face. She feels these nails digging into her cheek and just pulling upward like this, like someone is just grabbing her cheek like this. She's laying there for a second and she is just thinking to herself, what the hell is that? When she looks over, and what she sees makes her want to throw up. She sees this woman standing next to her bed. She's on the top bunk, right? The woman is so tall that her neck is bent and the side of her face is touching the ceiling. And she's just digging her nails into Kelsey's face. Kelsey is terrified. She has no idea what to do at this point. She finally looks at her face, the woman's face, and the woman's was sobbing hysterically, and she had this huge smile on her face, like this cruel looking smile is how she explained it, while she's sobbing hysterically and her face is pressed up against the freaking ceiling. She said that the smile almost looked carved out. She then looks down and this woman is holding this massive book that looks like a Bible, and she looks at her hands and the woman's hands are blistering, like they're literally like they're on fire, but she doesn't see the fire, she just sees what's happening, like what would happen if they were on fire. She said it almost looked like she was allergic to the book and that it was hurting her. So almost as if she was just standing there holding the book smiling, but it's hurting her so badly that she's sobbing. But Kelsey doesn't know what to do at this point. She is utterly terrified. Now, she didn't tell me what happened the rest of that night, but she did tell me that the next night, the same thing happened. She went to bed, read her iPad, fell asleep, woke up to the nails digging in her face, looks up and sees this lady with this bent neck smiling and sobbing. She said each night she would see her, the sobbing would get louder and louder and louder, till one night Kelsey herself just starts sobbing because she can't take it anymore. So she's sobbing and this lady is sobbing, and as soon as Kelsey starts to cry, this lady reaches out her hand like this, and she's shaking and it's blistering and she's just like trying to touch Kelsey. She succeeds. She touches her hand and she starts to stroke her hand. Then she starts humming, and she's humming and stroking her hand while she's crying and smiling. And then in a sing-song voice, she starts calling her her baby, her child. And as she's stroking her, humming, crying, and smiling, blistering hands, just all of it. This went on for days until Kelsey could not take it anymore and she just blurted out, "You need to leave. If you don't leave, I'm never going to sleep again." And then the woman just starts nodding like this. Like she's like, "Okay, I'll leave," as she's smiling with that cruel smile on her face and sobbing. And she just starts backing away. And Kelsey never saw her again.
We have another trucker story on our hands. A few weeks ago, I posted something terrifying that happened to me and my family. We were actually followed by a trucker, and I received another trucker story. A follower that wants to remain anonymous sent me the story, and she said that this happened a week after Christmas. Her and her two boys were driving in Pennsylvania on the highway. It was dark, it was snowy, the roads were bad but not terrible. The traffic wasn't bad, people were driving slower than usual because of the snow, and one of the boys needs to go to the restroom. So now she's panicking. She's like, okay, we need to go to the restroom so we don't have an accident, and she is trying to speed up a little bit to try to get to the gas station so that one of her boys can use the restroom. She said that she was originally on the right lane, which is the slow lane. She decides to move over, speeds up just a little bit, enough to pass that truck, goes, and as she's speeding up, that truck starts flashing its lights at her and starts honking and starts acting crazy. And she's looking at the mirror like, okay, I didn't do anything bad, so what's going on? She said that she started thinking to make sure that she did not cut him off, and she didn't. She was driving very careful, and this truck just kept on doing this on and off, just flashing its lights at her, honking, just acting crazy. She's freaking out because one, she's a woman alone with her two boys, and whoever is in this truck is just bad, upset. And then she started getting in her head, like, okay, am I doing something wrong? Is something wrong with my car? And she had a feeling that this trucker wanted her to pull over. Eventually, the traffic started to slow down even more because of the weather. She's just trying to get home at this point, and she does. She talks to her husband about the situation, and he's like, whatever you do, if this situation ever happens again, one, don't fight with the trucker. And two, if you feel like whoever this is wants you to pull over, don't. She said that she felt validated and that she wasn't going crazy, especially hearing my story, because she was like, okay, so this is something that happens. What's crazy is that we don't really hear about this too often. So if you guys have any crazy trucker stories, road rage stories, please send them via DM or email, because I don't really hear a lot of trucker crazy stories. Let me know what you guys think. Are these truckers trying to tell us something like, hey, slow down, you're acting crazy? Or is it something more sinister? Let me know in the comments. And also, if you like all things spooky, scary, and true crime, please make sure you follow.
Woman named Chelsea emailed me and she said that she saw Jeffrey Epstein alive in Dallas in December of 2019, months after he supposedly killed himself in prison. This story is obviously alleged. These emails can come from anyone. However, I am going to share the details that she provided to me, and you can make of them what you will. I'm going to refrain from sharing my own opinion. I went down the Epstein rabbit hole last night, and I am just disgusted. I had nightmares. But Chelsea said that on the night of December 2nd, 2019, she was headed to an event for women in business in Dallas, Texas. She was on I-75, and she exited Valley Road at about 5 p.m. in heavy traffic, and when she exited, she got caught up in a traffic jam in the left lane. There was an large blue Ram truck in the opposite lane heading toward her that was looking to make a U-turn, so it was stopped in its respective lane, and a space opened up behind her, so it made the turn and ended up directly behind her. That behavior is not unusual in Texas. People do it all the time, but she happened to glance in the rearview mirror behind her. She immediately recognized the face. Now, she did not specify if this person was driving or if he was in the passenger seat or in the back seat. I don't know. But she said white hair, close cropped, narrow eyes, high cheekbones, distinct facial features that she said shook her to her core. She knows it was Jeffrey Epstein. She said he was wearing a lighter tone blue shirt that was a little bit lighter than the shade of the car. But at this point, they were stopped in traffic, and she could not believe what she was seeing, so she turned around in order to get a closer look. Realizes she had taken her foot off the brake and her car was inching forward, so she spins back around to make sure she doesn't hit the car in front of her. She stops, she looks back, and that's when Jeffrey Epstein, or whoever this man was, sees that she's looking at him. But I could see the look of panic in his face when he realized that I recognized him. I reached for my phone to get a photo, and all of a sudden he started surging through traffic, honking at people to let him through. Ended up pulling around and crossing 3 lanes to turn onto Chase Oaks Boulevard faster than she could comprehend. She said she's not an aggressive driver, but she's not a shy one either, but he must have been going 60 miles an hour as he flew down this road. I could not push my way through traffic in my little red Camry the way that he did, but by the time I got to Chase Oaks Boulevard, he was long gone. Up until this point, she, like everyone else, believed that he had passed in prison, like everybody said. But when she got home, she was so shaken by it that she started digging, and she found the drone photo of him on the island, supposedly after his death. She also found out that his bank accounts are still active and that his brother does not believe that he killed himself. Also found out that Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, for a long time, was a lead professor at UT Dallas. It was Christine Maxwell. She also found out that Christine Maxwell owned at least 2 properties in Dallas in 2019. I also found this article, which she sent me, confirming that Ghislaine Maxwell does have a Dallas family tree. She's not looking for any kind of attention from this. She just wants people to know what's going on and that she believes that he is alive and that this was the man that she saw. She says that at the time this happened, she did have a friend who was a YouTube creator. He posted her story and was pretty much immediately deplatformed and demonetized. I don't wish this on anyone. I just want people to know the truth, and this is my honest testimony. I will swear by it to my grave. I don't know, you guys, the rabbit hole on this goes so deep, and I'm just putting this here for whoever wants to take what they will from it.
Y'all know how I said if I'm going to be scared, you're going to be scared with me? Yeah, it's time for another spooky follower story. I am Autumn in Appalachia. Send me your spooky stories. Add me on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. Without further ado. This story comes from Holly. She lives in Missouri, right outside of Jefferson City. When she was 15, she was babysitting 2 children one night when someone, or should I say something, broke into the house they were in. And Holly says that even the police were scared and disturbed by the details of what happened that night. So one evening, Holly is babysitting two children who were 5 and 7 at the time, while her parents and the children's parents go out on a double date together. She said that the kids' parents, they had a ranch-style home where you enter in on the main level. The whole living area is kind of like right there, and right off this living area is a hallway where the bedrooms are. The first door in that hallway is a door that leads to the basement. It is locked with one of those chain locks, and the chain lock is on the outside. There is no lock on the inside, like the basement side, so you can't open it from that side. The time comes to get the children in bed, so she does, and afterwards she is sitting in the living room on the couch that directly faces this hallway. She has the TV on, but no sound playing. As she's sitting there reading her book, she begins hearing what sounds like a person, some sort of big animal, walking up and down these basement stairs. She looks up, verifies that the chain lock on the outside is still securely locked, and goes back to her reading when she begins hearing that doorknob turn. She looks up, and to her horror, she sees this hand reaching around the door frame, grabbing the chain lock, trying to unlock it. She said this hand was like bigger than normal, just a very like round hand, and she said that something about it just looked off. Now she audibly gasps, she jumps up, runs to the basement door, slams it shut. That hand had like retracted itself, so she slams it shut, runs down the hallway, grabs the kids into the neighbor's house. They book it. The neighbors help Holly call the restaurant that the parents are at. The parents immediately call 911. The parents are in such a rush to get home. They all jump into one car together. They rush and meet Holly and the kids at the neighbor's house. The police show up around the same time. They search the entire house. They find nobody. The only thing that they found were footprints that were in the yard leading up to the basement door, but it was only footprints going to the basement door. There were no return prints anywhere in the snow. It's also important to note that these footprints in the snow were leading like from the woods up to the basement door. And when the police checked this out, they ultimately told everybody that they are just not sure if somebody really was in the house and they like ran away, or if, nobody was ever there at all. They end up leaving, and because all four of the parents had carpooled in one car rushing to get back, their other car is left at the restaurant in another town over. Holly ends up staying behind at the house with the children and the children's mother while the other three adults go to retrieve that car. While they are gone, Holly, and we'll just call her Jody, the kids' mom, they are sitting on that same couch and they are facing the basement door. So as they all sit there in the quiet waiting, the kids end up falling asleep on the couch. Holly moves to the love seat. She's half asleep when suddenly the mother startles her awake and says, "Holly, I just saw the hand." As Holly sits up and begins looking toward that basement door, the door opens, and out of this door, the crack in the door, this giant shoe, like bigger than a normal person's shoe, like juts out of the door, and then they see these two hands that are abnormally white come out of this door frame and begin messing with this chain lock again, trying to unlock it so it can fully open the door. Jody screams to the kids and tells them to get out of the house. The children jump up and start bolting for the front door, while Jody and Holly bolt for the basement door. The hands in the shoe go back behind the door. Whatever it was, whoever it was, never said a word to them. They slammed the door shut, but when they shut that door, it starts banging on the other side of this basement door. As soon as they see that the kids make it to the front door successfully, Jody and Holly both run out with the children. They go back over to the neighbor's house and they call 911 again. 4 or 5 minutes later, Holly's parents show up, the other dad shows up, and they wait at the neighbor's house anxiously to see what the police find. So the police come over, these two officers, and they again confirm that nobody's in the house. They searched the basement, the entire house, nothing's there. They said that the only thing that was different this time versus last time when they got called out was that the clown costume that they had in their basement in the corner was no longer there. Everybody stops and looks at each other in shock, because before the police walked over to the neighbor's house to tell them this, Jody and Holly had both been discussing how this shoe that they saw come out of that door was very clearly a clown shoe. And why in the Missouri fried hell would that make sense? They thought their eyes had to have been playing tricks on them. And so they look at the officers, Jody and her husband, and they say, we don't have a clown statue or a clown costume, and definitely not in our basement. The police at this point, they start getting scared themselves. And they're like, no, we definitely, when we were here the first time, saw some sort of a statue dressed as a clown or a costume on a hanger, like in the air, in the corner of the basement. We were even cracking jokes at each other about it because it was kind of creepy. One of the officers even walked right up to it and poked it to make sure that it was not a person standing there. And when it didn't move in the darkness, they assumed it had to be some sort of a costume. At this point, when the officers realize like the magnitude of what is going on, they are so disturbed, they call for backup. Backup arrives, they check the entire house, every nook and cranny, and they find nothing. Definitely no life-size clown in the basement. And that is pretty much where the story ends, guys. They, to this day, Holly is 41 years old. This happened when she was 15 years old. She, her parents, the other family, and even when they see the officers on occasion, still discuss this and do not know how to explain it, what or who this thing was. Holly said that the officers said that what haunts them the most is that they showed up, they came face to face with whatever this thing, whoever it was, and that they left the house not knowing that it was real and that that was actually something standing there. They left the house with the kids and the mom there. It traumatized her so much that to this day, she can't walk down a dark hallway without a light or a night light on, and that she, of course, is scared of clowns. What in the John Wayne Gacy is going on in Missouri? Are y'all okay? I'll keep my Appalachian cryptids, and y'all can keep whatever the hell was in their house. Y'all let me know. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments, and stay tuned for some more spooky follower stories.
Let's read another true and scary story. This one comes from Ethan. I took a shortcut through the bush at 16. I think something followed me home. I've been seeing a lot of scary Reddit stories shared on TikTok and Instagram lately, and it finally made me feel brave enough to share something that happened to me when I was 16, living in my hometown in Australia. When I was 16, I got into my first somewhat serious relationship. He was my close friend's older brother, and their house was about a 10-minute walk from mine, if you were willing to cut through a stretch of bushland along a barely noticeable dirt road. My house sat directly across the street from the entrance to that bush track. One night, I was at my boyfriend's place watching a movie, and we both fell asleep. When we woke up, it was almost 11 p.m. His mom had a strict no sleepovers rule, especially for partners. He walked me to the door, said goodbye, and that was it. Looking back now, I really think he should have offered to walk me home. I was only 16 and it was late. I started down the street toward the bushland entrance. Going the long way around through the streets would have taken over 20 minutes, while the bush track only took about 10. I'd used this shortcut plenty of times before, but usually only during the day, and rarely alone. It was a moonlit night, and I remember thinking the moon was unusually bright. Honestly, one of the most beautiful I've ever seen. The light filtered through the trees, so the bush wasn't in total darkness, which made me feel a bit better about not tripping. A steady breeze moved through the leaves. It was late September, and that kind of cool, windy night is pretty typical for an Australian spring. I was just over halfway down the dirt road when I noticed something strange. The breeze was still blowing. I could see the trees moving, but everything had gone completely silent. No insects, no rustling, no distant traffic, nothing. It was the kind of silence where you could hear a pin drop. I felt uneasy, but I kept walking. A few moments later, a heavy sinking feeling hit my gut so hard that I stopped dead in my tracks. I just stood there, staring straight ahead, when a sharp chill ran up my spine. It's hard to explain, but my body was screaming at me to run, while my brain was telling me to turn around. To this day, I wish I had just run, but my curiosity got the better of me. Slowly, with my breathing getting heavier, I turned my head. Standing meters behind me on the path was a tall, thin, dark figure. It didn't look like a normal shadow. It had shape, presence, and the only thing I could make out clearly were its eyes, glowing and locked directly onto me. My body instantly went into full fight or flight mode. I turned and sprinted down the dirt road toward my house. I wasn't thinking about anything except getting back to my street. Some were visible, some were safer, some were human. I don't even remember my feet hitting the ground. It felt like I flew. I jumped my back fence, rushed to my bedroom window, slid it open, and climbed inside. That was the first time I stopped running. I turned to look behind me. There was nothing in the yard, nothing on the street, but I could still feel it. That horrible sensation of being watched, like when someone's stare lingers a little too long. I barely slept that night. I only drifted off when the sky started to lighten. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The bedroom I was in had originally been my older sister's. She moved to the front of the house for more space, and I took her old room. The window in that room never properly closed. I later found out it was because she used to sneak out at night and had damaged the latch so it could be opened from the outside. That's how I got in so quickly that night. A few nights later, I was asleep when I suddenly felt the energy in the room change. I jolted awake instantly, like my body sensed something before my brain did. My window was slightly open. I knew I had shut it. I was still shaken from the other night, and I had double-checked it before bed. I got up slowly, walked over, and pushed it closed without even looking outside. I didn't want to see anything. I just wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. After that, the nightmares started. I kept dreaming that my window was opening while I slept and that someone or something was trying to get in. The dreams were so vivid and frequent that I could barely sleep at night. Eventually, I could only get proper rest during the day. After a couple of weeks, I was desperate. I came up with an idea. If the window could slide open from the outside, I'd jam it. I found a piece of wood the right size and wedged it along the window track so it physically couldn't move. I had my brother test it from outside. It wouldn't budge. After that, the window never opened again. But I never walked through the bushland ever again either. Not alone, not with friends, not even in the daylight. I didn't want to attempt anything. Over the years, I've only told this story to a handful of people. One of them was my best friend and his partner, who is Aboriginal. When I described the figure I saw, the look on his face genuinely scared me. He told me he believed I might have encountered a McCoy. In some Yona beliefs from Arnhem Land, a McCoy is a malevolent spirit associated with death, illness, and misfortune. It's said to lurk in dense bushland at night. They're known to be stealthy, fast, and often invisible, which made him say it was unusual that I saw it at all. He also said something that stayed with me ever since, that the darkness connected to a McCoy can follow a person long after the encounter, if they manage to escape. The way he said "if" made my stomach drop. I'm 30 now. I live an hour away from my hometown with my partner and our 2 dogs. But every now and then, I still have that nightmare. I'm back in that bedroom. It's dark. The window starts to slide open, and I hear the soft thud of wood hitting the frame as someone tries to force its way inside. Even now, sometimes when I'm alone and it's dark, I feel that same shift in the air, that same heavy, watchful presence. I don't know if it's just my brain replaying old fear, or if something from that night in the bush is still trying to find a way in. The way that this perfectly lines up with what your friend's partner was saying about a common encounter with a McCoy, I am so terrified. This is so scary. I'm glad that you did go outside and you jammed the window shut so nothing could come in, because that is, it's so horrifying, and I don't even want to know what would have happened had you not done that. Thank you again, Ethan, for sending this one in, and if you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
This is probably the scariest brujeria story time that I have heard in a really long time, especially because it involves a baby. The person who submitted this wants to be anonymous, so let's call him Alejandro. This story took place in Colombia, by the way. Alejandro was a very well-known lawyer, like in the city. He had his own law firm. He had a beautiful wife named Isabela. They had a beautiful home. They had a life that you can only dream of. The only thing that was missing in their life was the fact that Isabela could not get pregnant. They had tried everything, but no matter what, she couldn't conceive. As time went on, they decided to make their peace with this and just enjoy their happy life together. For whatever reason, Alejandro never really let that feeling go. He always wanted a child. Now, at his firm, he had recently hired a new secretary named Lucia. Lucia was a beautiful, young, bright woman that he pretty much took a liking to very early on, and she kind of took a liking to him as well. It started off with them being very flirtatious with each other, long conversations, until it turned into a secret affair. Now, Lucia had a child that she had from a previous relationship, so Alejandro knew that Lucia could get pregnant. As time went on, their little love affair blossomed so much that Alejandro made a decision that he was going to leave his wife Isabela in order to be with Lucia. On the day that Alejandro planned on telling Isabela about his affair with Lucia, he came home and found Isabela standing there waiting for him with a smile on her face, just like she always did. Alejandro went up to her and told her that he needed to have a serious conversation with her. But Isabela said, okay, we can have that conversation, but first, let me go first. I have something I need to tell you. Alejandro's like, okay, what is it? Isabela blurts out, I'm pregnant. This completely changed everything, and Alejandro decided not to tell her about the affair, but to stay with his wife. The next day, when Alejandro went to work, he went up to Lucia and told her that he could no longer be with her because his wife was pregnant and that he wanted to stay with her and work on the marriage. That he could write her a recommendation letter that would 100% guarantee that she could work at any law firm of her liking, and that he would even give her a check with like a large amount of money in order for her to leave, that she could no longer work there with him anymore. Lucia was of course not happy about this news, but she went ahead and kind of put her head down and told him that he would regret this. She grabbed the money and left. Not long after, Isabella is now progressing with her pregnancy. She's about like 6 months along. She begins to get extremely sick. She can't keep anything down. She is losing so much weight to the point where like anytime she's getting dressed, she's literally just like a skeletal thing with like a belly. They take her to the doctors back and forth. The doctors can't find what's wrong with her. And then the smell begins. Out of nowhere, Isabella starts to emit this like rotten smell coming from within her. So bad that it like fills up the whole house. I'm gonna have to do a part 2 because this is getting long. I'm so sorry. At this point, Isabella's about 6 months pregnant. She's having a lot of issues with her pregnancy. She's losing a ton of weight. When out of nowhere, she starts to smell like this rotten smell that's like coming within her. The smell is so bad that it's literally filling up the whole house. And anytime anybody comes over, they can smell this like rotted flesh smell. They go back to the doctors to check on Isabella again, and the doctors give them the worst news ever. Apparently, the baby had passed away weeks prior, and that rotten smell was literally coming from inside of Isabella because the baby was decomposing. They immediately took the baby out, and Alejandro actually saw the baby. He says the baby looked decomposed, and it just did not look like a human baby. After taking the baby out, Isabella's condition just got worse and worse. They tried everything to kind of get her back, like antibiotics, you name it, but she became septic and unfortunately passed away just days after the baby was taken out. Alejandro was of course completely heartbroken. In a blink of an eye, he had lost his wife, he had lost his child, he had lost his whole family. He lost everything. In order to cope, he decided to just dive in right back into work and just go back into his like firm and continue working on all his cases. Soon after, he was assigned to defend an elderly woman named Doña Elvira. Apparently, she was facing a ton of years in jail, and he was supposed to be her defender. After they met up and talked over the case, Doña Elvira told him something strange. She looked at him and said, "I will help you if you help me." Alejandro, of course, was like, "What are you talking about?" Doña Elvira told him that she had a gift, and that the moment he walked into the room, she could sense that he had this darkness upon him, that someone had done some very dark magic on him in order to get him to completely like lose everything, even himself. That even though he already lost his family, that she couldn't do anything about the family being lost, that she could help him because he was next. He was of course shocked because there was no way for her to know that he had lost his family, and on top of it, she started to give him more details about like where the brujeria came from, and told him that it was because he had had an affair with a younger woman who was like vengeful. And then she gave a bunch of other details that no one knew, and he was just like in complete shock. Alejandro decided to defend Doña Elvira with everything that he had, and her charges ended up being dropped. Now, soon after Doña Elvira came across with her promise, she told him to come over, and she went ahead and did a cleansing on him. She then told him that someone had buried something in his backyard, and took him straight to the spot where someone had buried it. When they opened it, they found a bottle filled with like a weird liquid, and inside the bottle was a doll of like a woman and a doll of a baby in there, surrounded with a bunch of other stuff. Doña Elvira told Alejandro not to open it, but to take it and bury it in a nearby cemetery, that she would do the rest. Alejandro went ahead and did just that, and Doña Elvira told him, or promised him, that whoever had done this, or the person that was done this, would pay, and that he would know about it. Later, through like mutual acquaintances, Alejandro found out that Lucia had actually unalived herself and her children. Apparently, the new firm that she started working for, he gave her that letter of recommendation. She started working at this new firm. She did the same thing to one of the lawyers there. Like, she started like kind of flirting with him back and forth, and it started an affair where she became pregnant. The only difference was that this lawyer pretty much told her that he wasn't going to leave his wife and that she was on her own. He pretty much like kicked her out and like fired her, leaving Lucia on her own, having to now take care of this baby and the child that she already had. Apparently, she ended up losing everything, couldn't get hired anywhere else, and started to lose her mind. And one day she lost it so much that she unalived both of her children and then unalived herself. So yeah, I cannot express enough how much this stuff just is not worth it. You may think it's working temporarily, but there's always consequences, especially when you're messing with like something extremely dark. Leave it alone. Only worry about cleansing yourself. That's it. But don't do unto others as you were not done unto you. Like, seriously, follow that. Alejandro, not only because of his indiscretion, not only lost his wife, he lost his unborn child and almost his own life, all because he couldn't just be like a decent human being, apparently.
Go from not wanting anything to do with you to loving you like crazy. Let's get into it. The person states that their mom literally saved their life. For privacy purposes, I'll be changing people's names, and sorry about the noise in the background. I'm washing clothes. He's always been a ladies' man, literally a ladies' man, and he always had more than one girlfriend. Now, did they know about it? No, and he thinks that this was his karma for what he had done in the past. That's when he came across Maria. Now, Maria was a beautiful woman. I'm talking about long hair, Hispanic curves, all of that. That's what he says. Trying to be there for a short time, not a long time kind of situation, and that's how he had her for a couple months. After sleeping over her house, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Like, the day passed and he could not stop thinking about her. He dreamt about her. He thought about her 24/7. It was like his whole life became consumed with Maria. Lived with his mom, and everybody made fun of Carlos for being 20 years old and still living with his mom at home, but him and his mom had made a plan that he was going to save enough money for a whole year worth of bills before moving out and buying his home. He was indecisive if he wanted a condo or if he wanted a house or what he wanted to do with the money, but he knew that he needed to save as much money as possible. Did it previously. When Carlos slept over Maria's house, the next day he couldn't stop thinking about her, neither the following days after nor the weeks or the months later. He became completely obsessed with Maria for months, and he kept asking himself why, I wasn't planning to be here for a long time. This was supposed to be a short kind of thing. It was serious when he started spending all of his money on her. I'm talking about $1,000 on a bag, $1,000 for the rent, $1,000 for her car payment. So much so that his mother noticed the change as well. Now, his mom and him shared a bank account, and she always monitored it to make sure that he wasn't overspending, and that's when she saw it. She saw that her son was literally dropping about $10,000 every single month from his savings, and she went into straight panic mode, asking him, what are you doing? And that's when he revealed to his mother that he didn't know why, but he couldn't help himself. He just wanted to get everything he had. He wanted just to show her how much he cared about her. Now, at first, the mom thought that maybe my son finally found someone that he was head over heels for, and this is kind of like a karma of effect of what he had been doing for years with the other women. However, something didn't add up. Because when she asked him when it all started, he said right after sleeping over her house. And that's when she started interrogating him. She said, did you eat anything? Did you drink anything? And that's when he told her, no, all I had was coffee, and then I had to head to work, and then that was it, Mom. Like, all I had was coffee at her house. And that's when the mom asked him, was the coffee black or with cream? Now, why would you ask that? I don't know. No, Mom, I drink black coffee. Like, why would you think that I have cream in my coffee? She's like, no, because I just wanted to know. And for some odd reason, this was the red flag she was looking for. Interrogated Carlos a little further. She's like, are you sleeping well at night? He's like, no, I wake up in night sweats and uncomfortable when she's not near me. Like, I literally need to have her next to me. Like, I can't breathe without her. And that's when Mom says we're going to go do a cleansing on you and have some prayers done, and we're going to see if you still feel the same way about Maria. At this time, Carlos states that he had spent at least over $50,000 on Maria, talking about waiting on her hand and foot and all the bills I mentioned previously. Like, this man almost gave her his whole entire savings. Mom forbid him from calling Maria for the next 4 days after doing the cleansing. She just wanted him to do a lot of Epsom and salt baths and just to take some time away from work and to just tell her that he had a family emergency where he needed to be disconnected away from the phone for some time. Go, Mom. This was all said and done, the practitioner had told Carlos and his mom that she had done some heavy work on him. Now, I'm not going to say what she did on here just to give no one ideas, but she had done some heavy work on this man, like some heavy stuff on this man. And thank God for his mother, because he could have taken his own life according to this practitioner. Also made it very clear to Carlos that he was no saint. So he better thank his lucky stars and his mom that she's alive and well to save him from his own demise, because this was karma coming to collect. Real time coming to collect. What was it that Maria did to Carlos? I have no idea. What do you guys think that was? I think that was karma. What do you guys think?
Let's read another scary Reddit story. I think someone is living in my apartment. I never believed those posts that start with, I know this sounds fake, but I swear it's real. Now I get it. When something like this happens to you, you already know nobody is going to fully believe you. I barely believe myself, and I lived it. This started 3 months ago, the night I realized I wasn't actually alone in my apartment. I was half asleep, scrolling on my phone around 1 a.m., when I heard breathing that didn't match mine. Slow, wet, like someone was trying to not be heard. It came from the foot of my bed. I didn't move, I didn't even breathe, I just listened. Then my phone buzzed with a notification and the breathing stopped instantly. That's when I knew it wasn't my imagination. I live alone, I always have. I double check my locks, sleep with my bedroom door closed, and I don't let people crash at my place. I sat there in the dark staring at the door, telling myself maybe I'd imagined it. Stress does weird things, lack of sleep too. Then I heard it again. My name. Not loud, not whispered like in movies, just softly spoken, like someone testing the sound of it. I turned on the lamp, nothing was there. I searched the apartment with a knife from the kitchen, shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Closets empty, bathroom empty, windows locked, front door bolted. No signs of forced entry, no hiding spots big enough for a person. I laughed at myself, that shaky kind of way you do when you're trying not to cry. I slept with the lights on and told myself I was fine. I wasn't. The next few nights were small things. Things you can explain away if you really want to. Cabinets open that I swear I closed. The couch cushions slightly indented like someone had been sitting there. The shower curtain pulled back when I knew I left it closed. Then came the smell. Metallic, sweet, like rust and old pennies. It only showed up at night and only in my bedroom. I washed everything, sheets, mattress cover, even the carpet. It didn't go away. I stopped sleeping. I started dozing in short bursts, waking up constantly because something felt off. Like being watched, but deeper than that. Like being studied. One night I woke up because my bed dipped. Not like I shifted, like weight. A slow, careful press near my legs. I screamed and kicked, falling out of bed. The light came on and the dip vanished. That was the night I bought cameras. I put one in the living room, one in the hallway facing my bedroom door, and one hidden on a bookshelf in my room. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want the looks or the jokes. The first night with the cameras, nothing happened. The second night, the hallway camera caught my bedroom door opening at 3:12 a.m. I was asleep in the footage. I didn't move. The door opened just enough for someone to slip through. The bedroom camera glitched for exactly 4 minutes. When it came back on, my door was closed. I watched that clip over and over, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. There was no one visible, no shadow, just the door moving on its own. I called my landlord the next day, asked if anyone else had access. He sounded annoyed, told me no, that I was the only tenant with keys and maintenance had to give notice before entering. I asked if anyone had ever lived in the walls. I didn't even know why I asked that. He laughed and said this wasn't a horror movie. That night I slept with my phone recording audio. At 2:41 a.m., the audio picked up whispering. Not words, just breathing and a soft clicking sound, like someone tapping their teeth together. At 2:46 a.m., something brushed my hair. I bolted upright and screamed. The recording captured my scream. It also captured another sound right before it. A quiet, pleased laugh. I left. I grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone, and drove until I couldn't see straight. I stayed at a motel off the highway, lights on, chair shoved against the door. I watched the camera feeds until morning. At 3:18 a.m., while I was gone, the bedroom camera turned back on. Someone was standing beside my bed. I wish I could say I saw a face. I didn't. Just a shape that was wrong. Too still, too close, like it had been there the whole night, waiting. It leaned down toward the mattress. Then it turned its head directly toward the camera. The next frame was static. I moved out that week. I didn't tell my landlord why. I didn't argue about breaking the lease. I just left. For a while, things were quiet. I slept again. I started to feel normal. I almost convinced myself it was some kind of breakdown. Then the emails started, from my own address. The first one just said, "You forgot something." No attachment, no explanation. The next night, I heard breathing again. Not in my apartment, in my car. I was driving home from work, radio on low, when I noticed the smell. The same metallic sweetness. I pulled over, heart racing, and checked the back seat. Empty. When I got home, my front door was unlocked. Inside, on my bedroom wall, written in something dark and sticky, was my name. And underneath it, a sentence. I don't need the walls anymore. I called the police. They searched the apartment. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No blood they could identify. They suggested maybe I knew someone who was messing with me. I didn't. That night I stayed awake. Around 4 a.m. my phone buzzed. Another email. I like when you're awake. My bedroom closet door creaked open slowly. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember running. I just remember being outside, barefoot, phone in my hand, gasping like I'd been underwater. I live somewhere else now. I won't say where. I don't sleep alone anymore. I still smell it sometimes. Still hear breathing when everything is quiet. Last night, I got one more email. No subject line, just a single sentence. You still leave space beside you when you sleep. I checked the cameras. There is a dip in the mattress, right next to me. Let's read another scary Reddit story. I've been seeing a lot of scary Reddit stories shared on TikTok and Instagram lately, and it finally made me feel brave enough to share something that happened to me when I was 16, living in my hometown in Australia. When I was 16, I got into my first somewhat serious relationship. He was my close friend's older brother, and their house was about a 10-minute walk from mine, if you were willing to cut through a stretch of bushland along a barely noticeable dirt road. My house sat directly across the street from the entrance to that bush track. One night, I was at my boyfriend's place watching a movie and we both fell asleep. When we woke up, it was almost 11 p.m. His mom had a strict no sleepovers rule, especially for partners. He walked me to the door, said goodbye, and that was it. Looking back now, I really think he should have offered to walk me home. I was only 16 and it was late. I started down the street toward the bushland entrance. Going the long way around through the streets would have taken over 20 minutes, while the bush track only took about 10. I'd used this shortcut plenty of times before, but usually during the day and rarely alone. It was a moonlit light, and I remember thinking that the moon was unusually bright. Honestly, one of the most beautiful I'd ever seen. The light filtered through the trees, so the bush wasn't in total darkness, which made me feel a bit better about not tripping. A steady breeze moved through the leaves. It was late September, and that kind of cool, windy night is pretty typical for an Australian spring. It was just over halfway down the dirt road when I noticed something strange. The breeze was still blowing. I could see the trees moving, but everything else had gone completely silent. No insects, no rustling, no distant traffic, nothing. It was the kind of silence where you could hear a pin drop. I felt uneasy, but I kept walking. A few moments later, a heavy sinking feeling hit my gut so hard that I stopped dead in my tracks. I just stood there, staring straight ahead, when a sharp chill ran up my spine. It's hard to explain, but my body was screaming at me to run, while my brain was telling me to turn around. To this day, I wish I had just run, but my curiosity got the better of me. Slowly, with my breathing getting heavier, I turned my head. Standing meters behind me on the path was a tall, thin, dark figure. It didn't look like a normal shadow. It had shape, presence, and the only thing I could make out clearly were its eyes, glowing and locked directly onto me. My body instantly went into full fight-or-flight mode. I turned and sprinted down the dirt road toward my house. I wasn't thinking about anything except getting back to my street, somewhere visible, somewhere safer, somewhere human. I don't even remember my feet hitting the ground. It felt like I flew. I jumped my back fence, rushed to my bedroom window, slid it open, and climbed inside. That was the first time I stopped running. I turned to look behind me. There was nothing in the yard, nothing on the street, but I could still feel it. That horrible sensation of being watched, like when someone's stare lingers a little too long. I barely slept that night. I only drifted off when the sky started to lighten. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The bedroom I was in had originally been my older sister's. She'd moved to the front of the house for more space, and I took her old room. The window in that room never properly closed. I later found out it was because she used to sneak out at night and had damaged the latch so it could be opened from the outside. That's how I got in so quickly that night. A few nights later, I was asleep when I suddenly felt the energy in the room change. I jolted awake instantly, like my body sensed something before my brain did. My window was slightly open. I knew I had shut it. I was still shaken from the other night, and I had double-checked it before bed. I got up slowly, walked over, and pushed it closed without even looking outside. I didn't want to see anything. I just wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. After that, the nightmare started. I kept dreaming that my window was opening while I slept, and that someone or something was trying to get in. The dreams were so vivid and frequent that I could barely sleep at night. Eventually, I could only get proper rest during the day. After a couple of weeks, I was desperate. I came up with an idea. If the window could slide open from the outside, I'd jam it. I found a piece of wood the right size and wedged it along the window track so it physically couldn't move. I had my brother test it from outside. It wouldn't budge. After that, the window never opened again. But I never walked through that bushland ever again either. Not alone, not with friends, not even in daylight. I didn't want to tempt anything. Over the years, I've only told this story to a handful of people. One of them was my best friend and his partner, who is Aboriginal. When I described the figure I saw, the look on his face genuinely scared me. He told me he believed I might have encountered a McCoy. In some beliefs, a McCoy is a malevolent spirit associated with death, illness, and misfortune. It is said to lurk in dense bushland at night. They're known to be stealthy, fast, and often invisible, which made him say it was unusual that I saw it all. He also said something that stayed with me ever since, that the darkness connected to a McCoy can follow a person long after the encounter, if they manage to escape. The way he said "if" made my stomach drop. I'm 30 now. I live an hour away from my hometown with my partner and our 2 dogs. But every now and then, I still have that nightmare. I'm back in that bedroom. It's dark. The window starts to slide open, and I hear the soft thud of wood hitting the frame as something tries to force its way inside. Even now, sometimes when I'm alone and it's dark, I feel that same shift in the air. That same heavy, watchful presence. I don't know if it's just my brain replaying old fear, or if something from that night in the bush is still trying to find a way in. Okay, so that last sentence gave me literal chills. This sounds so creepy. I'm not educated on what a McCoy is. I need to look it up. But I need my Australian people in the comments to let me know, what is a McCoy? Have y'all ever experienced something like this? And if this person is being followed, how would one handle this? Like, how do they get it to go away?
He experienced a glitch that altered his entire life. So this man says he was hanging out at his house one day, and all of a sudden he had this extreme urge to go stand outside in his lawn. He said it was the strongest, most clear feeling he's ever felt, and he went outside, and with that he felt this really weird wobble, like everything kind of scrambled for a moment, just a moment. He said he felt a feeling of detachment, and when it was gone, he went back inside his house. The first thing he noticed is that his car was a different color. It was the same model and same registration, just a totally different color. And then it just kept getting weirder. His wife came outside and asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, in all appearances, she was his wife, but he felt like it wasn't really her. He said going forward, she was liking foods that she had claimed to have hated before, and even bring up memories that he never remembered having happened. He said, and his route to work was mostly the same, but somehow different. There were random buildings that he saw on the way to work now that he had never seen in the 6 years he's been going on that route. 5 days a week. He either doesn't remember all of those new buildings or they just appeared overnight. He even remembers certain people from other departments at work that were just gone. And anytime he'd bring up or ask about any of these people to the other coworkers, everybody was always like, "What are you talking about? Who are you talking about?" Nobody knew of any of those people. He was a totally regular and normal guy otherwise, but he began measuring his life, all going back and basing it on that afternoon when everything changed. He says as he goes on living his life, about 15% of it absolutely spontaneously changed. Freaking crazy. It would drive me absolutely nuts. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Like, maybe little things here and there, but that's like extreme. Too many things. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments and definitely follow for more creepy story time.
Please excuse me for to have the virus, but we are back with another Trini Paranormal, Trini Scary Story, Trini Folklore for you today. And guess what? We headed down to the Parliament. The Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is where this paranormal experience took place. So stick around if you want to hear this scary story. So, hey Carissa, I wanted to share a paranormal experience I had while working at the Red House. Please keep me anonymous. There are so many people with paranormal experiences in the Red House. I'm not sure if it's because of the indigenous bodies found buried beneath the building or due to the horrifying events of the 1990 attempted coup. I love spooky stuff, so when I worked there, I asked my coworkers if they had any experiences there. One coworker told me that he and a police officer were walking down a hallway one day and one of the door handles began shaking violently as they passed. They both stopped and looked at it thinking maybe someone got stuck in the meeting room. The officer opened the door and nobody was there, just an empty room with no place to hide. Another coworker told me that she was working late one night in the office and heard a baby crying. She came out of her office and looked all around, but she was the only one in there. Now, from my experience, one morning I was in the staff kitchen making coffee and I was alone. All of a sudden, the door handle began shaking violently. My mind went right back to what my coworker told me, and I thought that he was pranking me. I still froze for a moment, and then I ran to the door and opened quickly, and not a single person was there. And the position of that door, I would have been able to see someone running away, and definitely would have heard those shoes on the marble floors. I couldn't believe what happened to me, and I grabbed my stuff and went to my office fast. My next experience was a morning again. I went to visit one of my manager's secretary to say hi. One thing to note is that there are smart TVs in every room in Parliament, so we can all watch the sitting of Parliament live and know what's happening at all times. Anyway, the TV was off because it was early morning. We were chatting and all of a sudden the TV turns on by itself at 100% volume. We jumped and looked at each other in shock. It was so loud, another colleague came out her office to see what was happening. We told her it came on its own and we realized that the remote was still all the way on the other side of the room. We were all spooked out, but we turned the TV off and went back to work.
I'm sensitive to energy and I've never felt an evil presence there, but there are definitely several things present. Well, I better get Marshall want him to hop on a rhythm named Haunting in the Parliament, because it seems to me that there's not only lower house and upper house sitting in Parliament, but it also seems to have paranormal hauntings. But on a very serious note, as you all would know, the Parliament is on top of burial ground, a sacred indigenous or native burial ground. So, every year our indigenous community would go and they would do prayers or their rituals in memory of the people. However, many believe that because it is disturbed area, because we disturbed a burial ground, that there might be paranormal presence there. But let me know, if you have worked or visited the Parliament in any capacity, have you all ever had strange experience, paranormal experience, or a paranormal presence that would have affected you during that day or your time there? Let me know.
Let's read another true and scary story. This one is called How Was My Father in Two Places at Once? First off, a little backstory on my dad. The man has so much character and color to him. Though he is mostly a chilled out grandpa at this point, when I was a kid, he was a crazy person. He was an amazing father, honest to a fault, and had character made of stone. He apologized when he felt he was wrong, and he would sit and cry with you when things were eating away at your self-esteem. However, as much as I owe him my morality and compassion towards others, I also owe him my extremely demented and nothing is sacred sense of humor. The man got more joy from life in tormenting his children than anything else. We lived on my grandmother's farm in rural Tennessee, and when the power would go out, which happened a lot in our area, he would dare me to run to the mailbox and then lock me outside, at 10 o'clock at night when I'm about 10 years old. And he would laugh so hard I could hear him over my screams while I banged on the door from the outside, pleading to be let back in. He was the type of dad to wake you up in the morning by revving a chainsaw, change the clocks in the house to make you get ready for school at 2 a.m., and stand on the front porch in his tidy whities while you were getting on the bus in the morning and yell, "I love you, I'm going to miss you so bad," in a voice that could only imply that he was suffering from severe brain damage. In other words, he was always looking for a way to scare you, embarrass you, or just make you have such a crazy, unexpected experience that you'd be guaranteed to remember him forever. And it worked. I love that man. Now, that was needed for context, and this story takes place in my second to last year on my grandmother's farm. I was 17 and had been working a job in my small town stocking beer coolers and mopping floors at the local gas station. I was driving home from work in my little truck at about 10 p.m., and as I pulled into the driveway, my headlights shone up on the hill to my grandmother's house and panned down the hill to the edge of our single-wide mobile home. I stopped immediately. All four tires in the driveway, pointing straight to end of that straight stretch of gravel, I could see my dad. His old flatbed truck and my stepmother's minivan were parked pointing to the left at the base of our trailer. He was standing behind them, with his back to my headlights. Our chocolate lab, Cassie, sat at his feet, staring intently at him, paying no attention to the vehicle entering her territory, which was highly unlike her. I only stopped because it was so late and so unusual for my dad to be outside at this time. It was the middle of the week. He was usually passed out in his recliner wearing nothing but his underwear, with the History Channel quietly rambling on about the Civil War by this time. I slowly proceeded down the drive. Our driveway was about a half a football field in length, and as I drove slowly towards the bottom of the driveway, my dad began to walk, still with his back turned to me, and step behind the vehicles, the height of my stepmom's van fully concealing him. It took another 15 seconds from that point for me to reach the end of the driveway, and I pulled my truck in on the side of his flatbed, leaving me closest to the road. I grabbed my big gulp and got out of the truck. "Dad?" No response. "Dad?" Still nothing. Immediately, I got a bit creeped out. But then I thought to myself nearly as quick, this dude is trying to scare me again, and he must think I didn't see him. I got down on my knee and peered under the vehicles. His left boot, unmistakable. Cassie's back legs and butt right beside him, tail tucked between her legs. I hollered out, "You're doing a crappy job of hiding, Dad. I could see your boot sticking out from behind the tire of the van." I watched as his left boot slowly slid to the right until it was concealed behind the tire with the other. Still no response. I called for the dog. "Cassie!" She turned and literally scurried beneath the vehicles to get to me as if she was under heavy gunfire. She was whimpering when she got to me and acting very strange, as if she were terrified. She was acting how I would imagine a dog would act if they were constantly beat on, and I'd never seen her behave that way before. When she got to me, I placed my hand on her, and you could almost hear her breathe a sigh of relief. She was sticking to my legs like glue, and I was still down on one knee and a bit off balance. She nearly knocked me over. I pet her for a moment and then tried to comfort her, but she seemed like she was afraid of something. With her tail still tucked between her legs, she pushed herself in between my legs as I stood up. It was after seeing how timid and odd Cassie was acting that I decided that I may be misreading the situation and that I might need to get into the house. My dad was surely a prankster, but when he was caught, he was caught. He never drug things out once we caught on. He would come out and say something like, "I guess you kids ain't as gullible as you used to be. I'm gonna have to start stepping it up a notch." Dad didn't drink much, and he never got drunk really, but I couldn't think of what the root of this odd behavior could possibly be, and it really started to weird me out. I walked around the front of my truck and around the vehicles to walk over to him. Cassie began to panic and whimper loudly, still glued to the inside of my ankles, crouched to the gravel with her head darting back and forth wildly. I stopped in front of my truck. I stand there for another moment in silence, waiting for something, but not sure what, and then announce, "Well, I'm heading in. See you in a bit, weirdo." I turn to walk to the front porch, unconsciously building speed as I hit the first step. Cassie drops back and doesn't follow me onto the porch, but seems to sort of stand guard at the foot of the steps. Keys in hand, I'm already searching for the deadbolt key. Panic is building in my chest, but I'm not sure why. I hurriedly unlock the door and jump into the house, swing around and slam the door behind me, locking the deadbolt all in one fluid motion. From behind me, I hear a voice yell, "What the hell?" I spin around. My big gulp drops to the floor and explodes across the living room floor. There sits my dad, in his underwear, sitting up from a deep sleep in his recliner. I began to hyperventilate and yell through gasps of air that there was a man in the driveway hiding behind the van. "I thought he was you. I was talking to him, Dad." I nearly collapsed into the floor. Within 15 seconds, my dad is running out the back door of the house with the spotlight and handgun, still wearing nothing but his underwear. He was outside for what felt like forever. When he came in, he was pale as a sheet. He said there was definitely someone out there, but he couldn't see them. He could hear them running, but when he pointed the spotlight in the direction of the footsteps, there was no one there. Crazy thing is, our trailer sat at the front of a 150-acre cornfield, and it was off-season, so everything was tilled down to the dirt. There was nowhere for anyone to hide. It was a terrifying experience, and I know it's one that seems easy to explain. My brain really wants to tell me that I had just foiled a car thief or something, or maybe even stopped a possible home invasion. The thing is, though, my dad has an unmistakable posture and an even more unmistakable walk. I know those were his boots that I saw under the van. I also know that if he had somehow set all this up, I would have heard about it for years, because it would have been one of his favorite stories to tell, how he scared me so bad when I was 17, and how funny it would have been. He does tell people about this from time to time, but he always ends with the same detail. That it wasn't until he was outside running around in his underwear with a handgun that I realized that Cassie had been sleeping on the floor next to his recliner when I ran in the door. There is no way that a car thief has the exact same boots and posture as your dad, and there is a dog that the car thief has that is just like your lab, Cassie. That is actually insane. Insane. As always, if you guys have your own stories you'd like me to read, please message me, and I will see you in the next one.
Working as a lighthouse keeper is one of the hardest jobs to ever exist. It's literally a job designed for people who don't give a shit about life anymore. The loneliness there is enough to drive you crazy, and with that, you will start seeing scary things that don't even exist, just like the story that I'm about to tell y'all. It all started in the year 1900 in a place called the Flannan Isles. You see, in these isles, there is this lighthouse you're seeing right now. Those who don't know, a lighthouse is a tall building like this that has a mission to keep the light on, okay? So when the ships that are on the sea see the light, they know how close they are to the surface. Now, normally every lighthouse has its keeper, and for this one, there's these gentlemen right here. These experienced keepers are James the Cat, Thomas Marshall, and then Donald MacArthur. And something very terrible is about to happen to them. You see, one day a relief ship arrived to the isle, okay? They had some kind of business there. They got to the isle, some people on that ship went to the lighthouse, and this is where things start to get weird. When they made it there, the lighthouse itself was locked from the inside, and nobody was there. This is where everybody else were like, bro, what the hell, this is not supposed to be happening. After a while, they somehow found a way in, and when they entered, the first thing they went to was the kitchen. They started looking in that kitchen, and this is where they noticed a freshly made meal that was barely touched, and a chair that was thrown on the ground. After this, they kept looking, trying to find out what happened to these men, and this is where one of them stumbled across a log. The log they found was basically something like this, a journal where they used to write important details about the work. Now, when they went to the last page, meaning that the most recent thing that was written in that log, they found something shocking that got them even more confused. See, in the last page, Marshall, one of the keepers if you remember well, he wrote that there is a terrible storm and the men with him are crying and praying. Okay, so bro, Marshall made it clear a terrible storm got them. That's why they're not here anymore. Well, no. Because the day he wrote that, which was December 12th, well, there was no storm, okay? The sea was really calm that day. Add to that, the weather confirmed that the storm didn't hit until December 17th. So what is Marshall talking about? And this is where we come to our first theory suggesting that these men completely lost it. They spent so much time there that they became paranoid. Reason why this theory exists, well, because they were crying and praying all the time. Meanwhile, nothing was happening. Everything was okay. So they lost their mind. They were clearly imagining things and it got them in a crazy state, but still, this doesn't explain why they locked themselves. But because the door was locked from the inside, there is a theory that says that there is a fourth man, okay? Someone or something was with them when this happened. That someone who was with them was the one responsible for locking the door, okay? But still doesn't explain how did they disappear. I mean, they're not here anymore. Well, for that, I guess we'll never know because this right here remains one of the most mysterious cases that ever happened. Where did they go? Were they sane or they lost it? What was the storm they were talking about? Why they were crying? Why they were praying? Nobody will ever know.
Weird, spooky dating stories. I've been told this by several different people. I believe it for that reason and for a few others. This is the story. When my grandma left my abusive grandpa many years before I was born, she moved herself and two of her three daughters, my mom and my aunt, into a new house. My aunt met a guy and they started dating. He was what you would call a greaser, hot rod driving, leather jacket wearing, grease back hair kind of dude. This would have been the early 70s. Most nights he would park down the street and walk to her bedroom window, tap on it, and she would let him in. Her bedroom was at the back of the house and the driveway was gravel. It ran past my mom's bedroom. My mom told me that every time he did this, she would hear his boots crunching in the gravel as he walked by. They would do whatever they did and then he'd climb back out the window and leave. Eventually my aunt met the man who would become my uncle. They're still married, and she broke things off with the guy. He didn't take it well. One night he stopped by and tapped on the window. She let him in and they talked for over an hour. Then he left. Shortly after, the phone rang in the living room and she went out to answer it. Her friend was on the other end, sobbing. She told my aunt that he had unalived himself. He had been driving around in his hot rod with a buddy, drinking liquor and shooting mailboxes. They pulled into a convenience store parking lot and he pew-pewed himself in the face, unaliving himself. My aunt said that is impossible. He just left her house. She looked up and saw him standing outside, staring at her through the living room window with red fluid all over his face. She screamed, woke everyone in the house, and he disappeared. My aunt told them that night what had happened. That was the only time she ever spoke about it. I've asked her a couple of times to tell me herself, but she wouldn't. My grandma and my mom eventually told me about it years later at different times. From then on, my mom would hear his boots crunching in the gravel every night, and my aunt would hear him tapping on the window. It got so bad that my aunt begged my mom to switch rooms. They did, and my mom then heard the tapping on the window instead. My grandma also told me they would always find his brand of cigarette butts in the ashtrays, even though he was the only one they knew who smoked them. A few other things happened in that house before they moved. One time, my grandma woke up to find herself an inch from the ceiling. When she screamed, the bed fell back to the floor. Oh, so it was like the whole bed. It wasn't even like just her body. Back in 2008 or so, I happened to deliver pizza to that house. I asked the woman who lived there if anything strange ever happened. She froze. She said the back room window got tapped all the time, as well as knocking on the side door, even though the driveway was paved by then. She heard what sounded like boots on it constantly. Her husband worked nights, so he didn't believe her or the kids, but she said almost every night something happened there. This guy is forever walking up that driveway and tapping on the aunt's window. And how crazy that the new family was like, actually, something does happen. And they report tapping on the window. The side door thing is interesting too. It makes you wonder if he's like, well, nobody's opening the window, so maybe I can get through the side door. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And if you have a weird, spooky dating story, send it my way.
My name is Jeannie, and I'm from Chicago. I wanted to share my story with you and hope you get spooked out, but this traumatized me. I used to believe in La Santa Muerte, and I was a very strong believer in her. People talk about both the good and bad sides of her, but I only went to her for good. One day, I decided to change religions and start believing in God. When I told my family and friends, they warned me it was a bad idea. They said she could get angry, but I went through with it anyway. I said my goodbyes to her, just not in the right way, and I truly regret that. At the time, I worked late nights as a cook at a university. I usually closed the kitchen alone, which was scary because the space was so big and empty at night. My son stayed with my mom while I worked. It was around midnight, almost 1 a.m., when I finished closing and headed to my mom's house to pick him up before going home. While I was driving, I got this overwhelming bad feeling, like something was about to happen. I tried to ignore it, but I still called my boyfriend and told him how I felt, asking him to stay on the phone with me until I got home. I was about 3 blocks from my mom's house when I stopped at a red light. My son was in the back seat. Suddenly, something told me to check my rear view mirror. When I did, I saw a large truck coming up fast behind me. Way too fast, and not slowing down. I remember thinking, he's going to stop, right? But he didn't. He slammed into the back of my car and then sped off. As he drove away, I jumped out of my car and screamed at the top of my lungs, "What the hell is your problem? I have a kid in the car." And then I saw something I never want to see again. It was her, La Santa Muerte. I saw her in the reflection on the passenger side of the truck. She looked angry, and in that moment I knew this was her way of letting me know she was upset and that she had received my message. And I've had a couple of scary encounters. This happened when my family and I moved into a new house in a different city. At the time, we were going back and forth between our old house and the new one, moving everything little by little. My parents were unloading the truck so they could head back for more things, and my older and younger brothers had gone to the store to get food. Once my parents finished unloading, they asked if I wanted to go with them or stay behind. I told them I'd stay at the house, so they left. I went inside the house and started recording a video for my friend so I could show her my new room. After I finished and sent it to her, I walked down the hallway to grab some water from the kitchen. Just as I was about to turn into the kitchen, I caught something out of the corner of my eye in my brother's room. It looked like a dark figure running across the room. At first, I didn't think much of it. I honestly thought it was my brother trying to scare me. So I laughed and said, "Ha, you think you can scare me? I already saw y'all." I didn't hear a response, so I thought they didn't hear me. I went over and walked into the room, but I didn't see them. I checked the closet, and they weren't there either. I felt confused and uneasy, so I went to the living room to look out the window for his car. It wasn't there. That's when I started to feel scared. I stayed in the living room until my parents and brother got home. About 15 minutes later, I saw them pull into the driveway. I told them what I had seen, but they didn't really believe me, since I used to joke around a lot about seeing things. Well, about 2 years later, I had another encounter.
One afternoon in the spring of 1998, a 64-year-old man named Klaus Schmidt walked through the international terminal of the Dublin airport in Ireland. And for some reason, as he was walking, he just felt really nervous. Like the idea of getting on his plane today just felt like a really bad idea. When Klaus finally spotted his gate at the end of the terminal, that feeling of almost dread really just totally washed over him. Now, Klaus generally was kind of a nervous flyer, but he never had this sort of existential dread before boarding a flight. This was new. This felt different. And so finally, when he got to the end of his terminal and actually saw his gate and saw people boarding his flight, he almost had like a panic attack. And he thought, maybe I should just listen to my gut feeling here and not board this plane and just, fly out tomorrow or something. But as he's standing there looking at the people getting on this flight, his logical side of his brain began taking over, and he just told himself that he was just being really nervous here, that there was nothing to be worried about, that he should just get on the flight, that it'll be over soon, and, he was just overreacting. And so even though he really could not fully get rid of this feeling he had, this dread that was like in his stomach at this point, he kind of overrode how he was feeling, walked up to the gate, scanned his ticket, and boarded the flight. About an hour later, and Klaus, he's in the aircraft, they've taken off by this point, and they're flying over the Irish Sea, and Klaus, he was by the window, he raised up the blind on his window, and he looked out, and it was, smooth sailing out there, the water's beautiful and calm down below, and he looked around at the other passengers and saw people were, relaxed. They were reading and relaxing and chatting, like there was no reason to think anything was going wrong on this flight. But still, Klaus just could not get rid of this feeling, and he just desperately wanted the plane to land and be done with this thing. But Klaus knew he couldn't speed the plane up, and so instead he just kind of did some breathing exercises and tried to calm himself down, and at first it was working. But over the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, Klaus started to feel like he was having a hard time breathing. And he began looking around to see if other passengers were also struggling to breathe. Like maybe there's something wrong with the cabin pressure. Maybe there's something wrong with the air inside of the plane. But, he'd look around and everybody still seems completely fine. It's just Klaus, who by this point is, he's sweating, he's rocking back and forth, he's so anxious. He just desperately wants this flight to be over. But again, it was like this inability to breathe continued to get worse and worse. And then he started to feel this really intense tightness in his chest. And he was telling himself, like, I'm having a panic attack. That's what's happening here. It's like my anxiety is fully taken over. I can't control it. And so he took off his jacket and he kind of unbuttoned his shirt and he's like dripping sweat. And the other passengers now are starting to take notice of Klaus. Like something's going on with this guy, but no one said anything yet. And Klaus, he's trying to stay calm, but he keeps looking around and everybody else seems fine and something's going on with him. And then that tightness in his chest, it got so bad that Klaus realized that this likely was not anxiety. He could be having a heart attack. And then as soon as he realized that that likely was what was happening to him, it was like all of his symptoms got 10 times worse. And before long, he felt himself kind of fading out of consciousness. He heard other passengers near him yelling out for help, clearly about him. And then a flight attendant ran over and began yelling out to the rest of the plane, "Are there any doctors on board?" And so as Klaus is drifting further and further into unconsciousness, all he could think to himself was his intuition was right. Something bad was going to happen on this plane. But before he could think much more about it, his vision went blurry and he faded into darkness. But it would turn out that Klaus's intuition was actually only half right. Because while it was true that something terrible did happen to him on that flight, he really did have a heart attack, it actually was his decision to get on the flight that saved his life. Because this particular flight was carrying 40 heart specialists home from an international cardiology conference, and they had samples with them of a brand new heart drug that was not yet available to the public. So when Klaus had his heart attack and the flight attendant began calling out for a doctor, well, the 40 doctors all shot their hands up in the air, and one of them rushed over and literally just gave Klaus this new medication that saved his life. In 1989, 22-year-old Eloise Lindsay was a fresh college graduate, and she was at a crossroads in her life because even though she just earned her degree, she really didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. And because she was an experienced backpacker, she thought a good way to, kind of get her life together would be to go on a sort of retreat, go out into the woods, go out into nature, and kind of find herself. So she had planned this very detailed 43.3-mile hike along the Appalachian Trail, starting in South Carolina, where the first 7 days of the hike she would be totally on her own, and then at the 7-day mark she would meet up with a friend at a particular rendezvous point. Her friend would give her resupplies and would be her companion for the rest of the hike. When Eloise told her parents what her plans were, they were not concerned for her safety because she was an experienced backpacker. She had made trips like this before. And so they said, great, we'll see you when you get back. So on November 4th, Eloise sets out to begin her journey down the Appalachian Trail. And the first couple of days of her hike were great. The weather was beautiful, the scenery was amazing, and she had all this time to just kind of be by herself and look internal and think hard about what she wanted to do with her life. But on the third day, when she woke up, she was sleeping inside of a tent she had camped just off the trail. She woke up and she had this intense sense of dread. She couldn't really place where it was coming from, but she knew something was wrong, and she's kind of doing inventory of her life, like, what did I forget? Is there something that I'm just not thinking about right now? But she kind of pushes it aside mentally and thinks, okay, you know what? I'm just going to pack up my campsite here and get hiking, and I'm bound to, come up with what it is that's making me feel this way. So she gets out of her tent and she begins packing up her campsite, and she's looking out, kind of scanning the tree line, not because she was looking for anything, but just because she happened to be looking out. And she could have sworn that she saw a man standing, 30, 40 feet away behind a tree. And she kind of did a double take and was staring at him. It's, it's broad daylight, it's the morning, and they're near a trail, so it isn't like unbelievable that there might be someone near her at that very moment. But she kind of did a double take and she looked at them again, and this person was gone. And she stood there for a minute just kind of looking in the direction of where she had seen this guy, wondering, is my mind playing tricks on me? Did I really see someone there? Why aren't they showing themselves again? If there was someone there, they clearly must have just been looking at me. Why aren't they, poking their heads out again to communicate with me in some way? We're out in the middle of nowhere. We should be talking to each other. But the guy never shows himself again. And so as she's standing there wondering what she should do, she isn't ready to yell out to this person because there's part of her that's a little bit nervous about yelling out to some stranger in the middle of the woods. But she starts to get this really intense feeling that she's being watched. And it feels an awful lot like the sense of dread she had while she was in the tent. And she's starting to wonder, are my instincts or is my sixth sense picking up that I'm being watched? Like there's some predator out there looking at me right now? And even though she has no way of knowing if that's actually true, she's alone in the middle of the woods, and even though she's experienced, she can't help but feel really vulnerable. And because this guy is just not showing himself again, she feels a little bit threatened. And so she begins to panic and she starts packing up all of her stuff as quickly as she can, and as soon as she can, she takes off down the trail away from that guy she saw in the woods. As she was walking down this trail, she couldn't help but think someone was right behind her, and she kept turning around to see if this person or whoever it was behind her, and no one was ever there. But this visceral feeling that she was being watched, that sense of dread she had, it just was not going away. And so she started walking faster and faster. Before long, she was running, and she's realizing that she's in a section of the Appalachian Trail that's very remote. She's not near civilization. She's not near her next rendezvous point. And so she's thinking to herself, I need to get off this trail. I need to get to a road. I need to get away from here as soon as I possibly can. And so her options were to continue on this trail for several miles, and it would probably take her until well into the night before she was going to reach civilization. Or she could take a shortcut because she believed there was a road that was running parallel to her trail, but it was way down the mountain. It would require leaving the trail and basically cutting through the wilderness to get down to this road. But she was pretty confident it was right down there. And because this threat of this person or thing following her was so intense for her, she decided to leave the trail. She couldn't stand the idea of having to spend another night out in the middle of the woods with this person stalking her. And so she walks up the trail and starts running down the mountain. It wasn't long before she started to hear audible sounds coming from what she believed to be this person that was following her. And she would turn around and there'd be no one there. And then she started to walk, trying to listen as she's walking, and she would hear footsteps far away from her, and she'd turn and there'd be nobody there, but she was certain someone was following her, someone was stalking her. And the sounds that were coming out of this person, this animal, whatever it was, they sounded like, a deep male voice, but she couldn't recognize if it was a language of some kind. It just sounded more like a grunt or a yell of some kind. And so her heart rate's elevated, she's panicking, and she's walking as fast as she can just through the middle of the wilderness, hoping she's walking towards this road. But after walking and running for miles into the middle of nowhere, she has not come to a road. It's now completely dark out, and she knows she's lost. And so she has to set up camp in the middle of nowhere, and she knows somewhere out in the middle of the woods is some person or something that is stalking me. And she's all alone. She has no way to contact anyone. She doesn't have a cell phone. It's 1989. And so she sets up her campsite and she gets in her tent, she zips it up, and she lays there hoping she doesn't hear any sounds. And sure enough, within minutes of being inside of that tent, she starts hearing those audible sounds coming from somewhere in the forest. And she hears what sounds like heavy footsteps walking around the perimeter of her campsite. All night long, she hears this. But luckily, they don't come up right to her tent. So there's some separation between her and whatever is making these sounds. And then finally, the sun comes up. She is out of that tent, packs it up, and continues running in the direction she hopes is the road. And of course, all day long, she has that sense that someone is watching her. She's hearing footsteps coming from behind her. She would turn. She doesn't see anything. She would hear that audible grunting sound, that low voice coming from somewhere behind her. But again, she would never see whoever it was or whatever it was that was making the sound. And then again, the sun is starting to set and she has not found the road. She hasn't found a trail. And she's thinking to herself, I can't even backtrack because if I turn around and start walking backwards, I'm bound to run into this very thing I'm trying to escape. And so once again, she sets up her campsite in the middle of nowhere. She gets inside, and as soon as she's laying in her tent, she starts hearing those heavy footsteps somewhere out in the woods, kind of walking around the perimeter of her campsite. She's hearing that low audible sound that she can't quite place. And at some point she falls asleep. She gets up the next morning. She jumps out of her tent, packs it up, and starts running, hopefully in the direction that will bring her to civilization. A couple days later, when Eloise was supposed to meet her friend on the trail at the 7-day mark, and they were going to finish the hike together, well, Eloise doesn't show up. But after several hours, when Eloise did not show up, her friend left the trail and contacted authorities and filed a missing person report. And the police would launch this massive search for Eloise along the stretch of the Appalachian Trail where she had said she would be. And for the next 14 days, hundreds of police and volunteers and helicopters are scouring this area, and there's no sign of Eloise. And so after 14 days from the time her friend filed the missing person report, the police had to turn the search off, and they say, look, we can't find her. 2 days after the search was terminated, so 23 days after Eloise had initially set off for her trek through the Appalachian Trail, a hunter that was out in the middle of nowhere near the Appalachian Trail discovers Eloise perched up against a tree. She's totally emaciated, she's dehydrated, she's delirious, but she's alive. At first, she was terrified of the hunter because she believed the hunter was this person that had been following her. But when she realized he was there to help, she went with him. She was brought back and brought to a hospital, and she was checked out. And besides being dehydrated and, emaciated, she was okay. And she would detail in multiple interviews and in her official statement that she had been chased for the past almost 3 weeks in the middle of the woods, and she doesn't know who it was or why they were chasing her. And then interestingly, she said right before she was found, so a couple of days before this hunter finds her, this person, this thing, whatever it was that was following her, got so close to her a couple different times that she was so scared she ditched her backpack that contained all of her life-saving equipment, like her sleeping bag and her tent, and it had some food and water in there. She ditched that so she could be lighter, so she could run faster away from this thing that is chasing her in the woods. So you gotta figure, you gotta be at such a high level of fear that you're prepared to ditch the one thing you really require to survive out in the wilderness, which was her pack full of supplies. And then after she's ditched her pack and she's run for some distance, she's got no supplies, no food, no water, she stumbles across this tree in the middle of nowhere that wedged inside the trunk is a cache of donuts and pound cake. And so she takes the donuts and pound cake, and between that and the stream water she had found, that's what kept her alive for the last few days before she was found. Eloise says she has no idea what to make of her experience, and law enforcement were baffled by it as well. Some people think Eloise had a mental break, and she effectively made this whole situation up, that she really was lost in the woods, but no one was chasing her, and she was just kind of paranoid and running around the wilderness for a couple of weeks. Other people, including park rangers that work that stretch of the Appalachian Trail, believe it's possible she could have been stalked by wild men, which are basically people that live out out in the mountains that are effectively feral, that live off the land, and they've been known, according to local legend, they've been known to attack park rangers, and people that live out in that area have claimed to have seen these wild men, and they kind of match the description of what she was describing. But as of right now, there's no official explanation for what happened to her other than she got lost and was found again. On the morning of Tuesday, July 13th, 1993, a middle-aged nurse named Sharon Dempsey hurried down the hallway of the Meharry Hubbard Hospital, which was in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. And as she went down the hallway, Sharon checked in every single hospital room because she was searching for a patient that kept disappearing from her room. When Sharon reached the end of the hallway, she looked into the last room, and there, inside, was the woman she was looking for. Her name was Mildred Lancaster. She was 69 years old, and she was sweeping the floor of another patient's room with a broom that Sharon knew she had taken from the custodian's cart. Sharon walked in, and she politely asked Mildred, what are you doing here? And Mildred turned to her and just said, oh, she was just doing her job. But she wasn't really doing her job. Mildred had been admitted to the hospital 2 days earlier because she was having stomach pain. But she was also suffering from extreme bouts of confusion. At this, Sharon, the nurse, just sort of sighed and kind of rolled her eyes because, obviously this was not Mildred's job. Mildred was a patient. She had been admitted to the hospital 2 days earlier, primarily because she was having stomach pain, but she also suffered from severe bouts of confusion, which is something she was witnessing right here. Her family had told doctors that, Mildred had spent most of her life being a housekeeper. And so when she would get confused, which, they saw plenty of times, she often would sort of default to thinking that she was back to being a housekeeper, even though, she was home or clearly not working. She would think she was working. And so when Mildred began demonstrating this kind of bizarre, disoriented behavior, there was some consideration to actually just physically restraining Mildred inside of her room to keep her from vanishing and, going and thinking she was a housekeeper somewhere. She could get into trouble or get hurt. However, Mildred was this very sweet and gentle woman who, it was just hard to forcibly restrain inside of her room. And so instead, the medical team decided that we're just going to have to deal with the fact that periodically she's going to, think she's at work and it might walk out of her room and go start cleaning somewhere. And so we need to keep a close eye on her and keep her safe and just deal with her stomach pain and sort of manage her disorientation. And so in this moment, Sharon, the nurse, who's just found Mildred once again cleaning some room she was not supposed to be in, she just, followed their protocol and went in and kind of gently told Mildred, like, okay, put the broom down, come with me. And, Mildred listened and she led Mildred back to her room and Sharon continued going about her day. A couple of days later, and Sharon was doing her regular rounds through the hospital. And as she did, she went into Mildred's room and once again, she saw the room was empty. Now, Sharon was actually just kind of annoyed at this point. She wasn't really concerned because by this point, Mildred had done this, had, become disoriented and left to go clean or something so many times by this point that it was just kind of a hassle. But, Sharon just followed protocol and quickly left the room and began walking along the floor looking for Mildred so she could bring her back. But after searching the floor, she didn't find Mildred. And so after checking the whole floor again, but this time much more thoroughly, looking in every closet, every supply area, really searching the area and still not finding her, that's when Sharon began to panic. She began going to other nurses and doctors and asking them, have you seen Mildred? And remember, at this point, the whole floor is aware of what's going on with Mildred, but nobody had seen her, so nobody knew where she was. And so Sharon ultimately went and spoke to the higher-ups at the hospital and informed them what was going on here. And in turn, they launched this huge search all across the hospital, both inside and outside, to just go find Mildred and get her back. And while the search is ongoing, Sharon was walking around trying to be helpful because, she was somebody that worked closely with Mildred and had a sense of where she might go. And she was telling folks to go to messy areas because Mildred, when she would get confused, would basically go clean areas she deemed messy. And so go to parts of the hospital that might look messy. And so people were doing that. But this hospital, it was huge. It was 11 stories tall. And there were lots of areas that appeared messy. And so it just seemed like a kind of overwhelming task to quickly search this massive property for Mildred. And then on top of that, making it even harder to find Mildred was the fact that the hospital didn't have security cameras. So they couldn't just pull up the footage and see if maybe Mildred had walked outside or something. After about an hour of the search going on, when still they had not found Mildred, and people were starting to wonder, like, are we even going to find her at all? It was at that point that something new and really concerning happened. Sharon called Mildred's cousin to let her and the rest of Mildred's family know that Mildred was missing, and that this time it was actually pretty serious, that they hadn't found her. But as Sharon is breaking this news to the cousin stops her and says, well, wait a minute, I think I know what's going on here. Because apparently a few hours earlier, the cousin had gone to the hospital to visit Mildred. And when they got there and spoke to the receptionist looked up Mildred to see what room she was in. And on their system, it showed that Mildred had checked out of the hospital that morning. So she was not there. And so, of course, this big search for Mildred was not going to find her because she wasn't at the hospital. But this really made no sense to Sharon. I mean, it did logically make sense that if she checked out, that would explain why she wasn't here. But Mildred should not have been allowed to check out of the hospital. She still definitely was not well. Not just her confusion, but also the stomach pain she was having. Like, she was still totally sick and should not have been discharged. But, the cousin was adamant that they actually left the hospital because they told them, Mildred's not here. There's no one to go visit. She's gone. She checked out. And so Sharon hung up with the cousin and quickly ran down the hall to go talk to the receptionist to see if it was actually true that Mildred had been discharged. And when the receptionist looked it up, sure enough, it was true. Mildred had checked out. And so at this point, Sharon, she could not believe what she was hearing. This didn't make sense. And so Sharon, kind of not knowing what to do next, she walked away from the receptionist and she just walked over to the window that looked out to the front of the hospital. And she was just standing there wondering what she should do. And as she was standing there, she was just looking outside kind of absent-mindedly. And she saw all these cars whizzing by, all these busy streets out there. And she suddenly had this thought, well, wait a minute, what if Mildred, in her confused state, went to the front desk and somehow talked her way out and got discharged and has now wandered out into the streets, and what if she's gotten hit by a car or something? This could be an emergency. I have to do something. And so Sharon's first thought was, I got to call the police. And so not long after this, after Sharon did call the authorities, the police arrived at the hospital, and they arrived along with search dogs. And one of the search dogs almost immediately picked up Mildred's scent by one of the front doors of the hospital. And then the dog led its handler down the street, which seemed to confirm that Mildred really had left the hospital. And so officers would search a full square mile around the hospital, and they even got a helicopter to begin flying overhead. And the search went on for days. But nobody found Mildred. There was no sign of her. She just disappeared. Until almost 2 weeks later. On Wednesday, July 28th, so 13 days after Mildred went missing, a security guard walked into a construction site on his daily patrol. And at the very edge of this site, he noticed there was a long, thin hole in the ground that was about 5 feet deep that had been dug to lay some pipework. But when the security guard just happened to walk over and look down into the hole, he gasped because he saw Mildred. It would turn out, on the day Mildred disappeared, she did become very confused, and she believed she was once again a housekeeper, and she went out, left her room to go do some work. And so Mildred just began wandering around the hospital for quite a while, and surprisingly, nobody stopped her, even though she had left the floor that she was supposed to be on. But she was just such a pleasant person and so nice that she just kind of passed by people and nobody said anything. And after wandering around for quite some time and going in and out of different places and up and down flights of stairs, she eventually found this construction site. And to her, it was not a construction site. Instead, it was this horribly messy area that needed to be cleaned because there were pieces of wood and plastic and debris everywhere. And so she just began to clean. And after a while, she had picked up quite a bit of debris and she had basically straightened the whole area out. But as she walked around towards the back of the site, she did not see a hole in the ground, and she fell inside. And because Mildred was just very disoriented, she likely didn't understand that she had, fallen into a hole and needs to climb out again. And so in this dark space, this dark confined space, she would have just continued to feel more and more disoriented and maybe didn't even attempt to climb out. But however it happened, she just stayed in that hole and remained undetected for days. until she just eventually died. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of this case is that Mildred actually never left the hospital. That construction site was on the 10th floor of the hospital. Mildred had just kind of meandered her way up to that floor, and that floor was being renovated. That was the construction site. And she had fallen in that hole. Then you have all these people that are searching the hospital looking for her, and they searched that construction site, but they didn't look down into this little hole. And Mildred, assuming she was alive when they were up there, didn't have the wherewithal to call out for help. She was confused and just stayed quiet in that hole. And so she was never found. Today, it's still not known why Mildred was listed as having been discharged on the day she went missing, because she was not discharged. Some people say maybe it was added into the system by mistake, or perhaps it was just a glitch in the system, but however it happened, it was just an anomaly. And then also the police dog that found Mildred's scent that took the authorities away from the hospital, that's also anomalous. We don't know how or why that happened. Ultimately, Mildred's family would sue the hospital for $13 million in damages, but eventually they dropped the case.
You guys are not going to believe what just happened. The Lalaurie Mansion in New Orleans, Louisiana, was listed and received an offer in under 24 hours. And for any OG American Horror Story fans, you know what this is about. Stepping into the foyer, it's actually pretty modern inside. I was expecting it to kind of have like this dated look to it. It looks like they do have some older pieces. It looks very luxurious. But come to find out, Nicolas Cage actually owned this property for a small period of time. Oh, I love a nice billiards room, but it's now owned by someone else. This is a pretty interesting room. Bar. Wine cellar. I love a nice wine cellar. It's nicely lit. Have another entrance on this side. Ooh, that staircase is really nice. It's so interesting to see the inside of historical homes because you expect something different. Welcome to the kitchen. Such a modern kitchen. Super millennial-o. Nice dining area. Super formal dining. Another living area. Pretty spacious property. And another sitting space. Spiral staircase. Cannot go wrong with this spiral staircase. So obviously this property has like a weird little history. If you're unfamiliar with it, you can look it up. But I was actually thinking maybe we can get Psychic-ish to do a reading on this property and see what pops up. That'll be actually crazy. I think that would be a good one to definitely tag her in. Oh, red walls. Bathroom. It's a weird curtain. What a nice underground lair.
I'm feeling stuff in a couple rooms. So I'm feeling something here and here. Let's definitely start with this staircase. And just a disclaimer, I don't watch American Horror Story. I know he referenced it, so I don't know what episode was about. I don't like scary stuff, which is strange. I know. This stuff doesn't scare me. Like hauntings and stuff don't scare me, but like other stuff does. And I don't know the history on the home. I purposely don't research that stuff. See if what I say resonates or not. I felt a woman who just walks the staircase quietly and like looking down, holding onto the rail. And they always seem to be in a white dress, right? Like a lot of, just side note, a lot of times the clothing is a way for us to recognize who they are, but sometimes it's also just the energy that's being given off, which is why you typically hear stories of a white or a black hat or something like that. But she's holding the handrail, looking down, quiet, doesn't acknowledge anybody, just keeps walking the staircase. She was hurt. She was like wronged. I feel like it's almost like giving like scorned lover type vibes. Not that she would ever do anything violent or harmful, just she feels like she was in a really great marriage and was deeply misled and is like beating herself up for should have seen that coming. I should have known better. How come I didn't see this or know that? Really beating herself up for something that she didn't do. This was on somebody else, on how they treated her, on how they ended things. She feels a real connection to the home, so she must have lived there. And this home was like so many things for her. It was safe. There was love. It was nice. And then someone just blew all that up emotionally and just ruined it for her. It feels like they were together maybe 20, 25 years, and she just didn't see it coming, and it just devastated her. She's now just walking the staircase. I don't know. I could see if I could move her along. She's really not, I don't think she's ready yet.
I don't think she's ready because she's not acknowledging me. She's not looking up. She's just, yeah, she's not ready yet. But if anyone else can feel her, maybe it's for someone else to help her move along, or maybe someone else will have a connection to her. Gotta be careful living in this home. It's not that it's cursed, but there's this heaviness that maybe it's coming from her. Maybe that's what's causing it. If they're living there full time and this isn't just like a home that they're Airbnb or just, stay in every now and then, if you're going to live in this home, you will have to find a way to clear that woman, because otherwise you will never settle. You will never feel comfortable, and you will feel like, I don't want to say bad things happen, but things are hard. Like everything becomes sort of difficult and challenging. Things in your life that weren't challenging before all of a sudden start to feel like they are. And there's this like confusion of like, I should be happy here. Why am I not? I just feel like it's going to be bought and sold a lot. Bought and sold a lot, because people will buy it not understanding the energy of it and then be like, this isn't working for me. This is difficult. This is becoming a burden, not understanding. And then they'll, offload it to somebody else. This room felt sort of weird to me too. It feels almost claustrophobic to me. Like when you entered this space, there's this sense of sadness, deep sadness and depression. Again, I think I blame this woman on the staircase for it. When you live in this home, you sort of feel like you're going through quicksand and you're not understanding why. And the energy just isn't bright and vibrant. Like this room in particular will definitely sort of squeeze you. I wouldn't recommend this home for someone that struggles with depression. I wouldn't recommend this home if you're going to be living there full time. The reason why this room feels almost claustrophobic and depressive is the way that it was built. Architecture can definitely affect the energy, and that room, the way it was built, restricts energy. I don't know the logistics of what and how. I'm just relaying the information I'm getting. It needs to be opened up a lot. Like that wall where the mirror's on should be just taken down and opened up somehow, to change the energy and to get things flowing. So with that, and eventually getting, clearing that woman on the staircase, then this house will have some hope for people who want to live there full time.
If I told you what I saw last night, you would not believe me. I can't even get my head around it. I went to do laundry at around 2 a.m. with my oldest son. After we put the laundry in, we went to a McDonald's drive-thru to get something to drink. The drive-thru was packed with about 5 or 6 cars ahead of us. I noticed none of the cars were moving forward, and it had been 5 minutes waiting. So I decided to go around the car in front of me to the next drive-through lane, because it has 2 lanes. As I'm pulling around, I look into their car to see why they're not moving, and I kid you not, both people, driver and passenger, looked dead. Heads tilted all the way back, eyes shut, not moving, dead. I freaked out and tried to pull out of the drive-through, going around the other cars just to get out of there. The next car I passed, all the passengers also looked dead. Heads tilted back, eyes shut. I panicked, thinking maybe they were all shot or someone killed them, so I hit the gas and I got out of there. My son called 911 and told them what happened and sent an officer to check. A few minutes later, the police rang and said everything was fine at McDonald's. My son saw it too. We both saw the car in front of us. The people looked dead. This was terrifying. It literally looked like one of those rapture movies or end of the world. Needless to say, I just can't wrap my head around what we saw or why, and I'm still scared of it. Isn't that horrific?
Have you noticed how we've not built any new cemeteries? Like any city, town you go to, they still have the same cemeteries they've had for hundreds of years. And people pass away all the time, yet these cemeteries never seem to fill up. There are always open plots of land where you can bury someone. So where are the bodies? Where are they going? What's happening to them? I've got this interesting theory that I've heard. Now, in the 1970s, there was this movie called Soylent Green. Now, Soylent Green was this movie starring Charlton Heston, and it was about this futuristic city in which the world had become overpopulated. They had destroyed the oceans, they had destroyed the earth, and times were really rough. And none of the people in the city could afford to buy any groceries. They couldn't afford just the normal things we get every day at the store. So in order to keep them from starving, they were sold this very cheap stuff that was made in the factory. It was like a squared cracker or ration, and it was called Soylent Green or yellow or red. And the people, because they were hungry, because they were starving, they would protest like every day. They would go out into the streets and have these huge protests. But these trucks would come around and they would pick them up and take them away. And all these people were like disappearing. So Charlton Heston's character, who is this detective, he starts investigating this mysterious case, which leads him to the factory where they make this Soylent Green. And what he discovers is that the Soylent Green is made from humans. And when you kind of look around now, right, the same things are happening that happened in that movie, right? We are slowly destroying the oceans, the earth. Groceries have become unaffordable. They are now a luxury to most. And you wonder, the foods that we're getting that are so cheap that we're able to afford to buy, the only stuff that we can eat, what is it made of? Now, I'm curious what you think. Why do you think we are not building any new cemeteries?
You can't make this stuff up. Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
I always sleep with the bedroom door closed at night. I don't know what it is, I don't know why, but I always feel more comfortable when the door is closed at night. Now, going back to ancient times, they believed doors not only protected them from humans entering their home, but something negative or evil from coming in. Now, maybe there's something to this. There was a case out in Connecticut. There was this older woman named Ashley. Ashley moves in with a roommate, and it was a small little apartment. She had lived there for about 6 weeks, and she said she was the kind of person that always slept with the door closed at night. But this particular apartment, her bedroom would get really, really warm, and the only way to cool it down was to leave the bedroom door open. So she started sleeping with the doorway open. She said one night she was in bed, and out of the corner of her eye, as she turned in her bed, she looked over at the doorway and she seen someone walk past. And she kind of rubbed her eyes, and once again she seen someone walk past the other way. So the next day she's talking to her roommate and said, were you walking around last night? I kept seeing you walk by the doorway. And he goes, no, I was asleep in bed the whole night. I didn't get up or anything. So next couple of weeks, this keeps happening. She keeps seeing someone walk by her doorway at night. And then one night it happens and her roommate is not there. And she actually calls up her roommate. He comes home, he searches the apartment. They don't find anything. So she said then about a couple weeks after that, once again, she was asleep in her bedroom. And she said she woke up and she just felt very, very cold that night. And when she looked over at her door, which was wide open, she said she noticed the doorway was partially closed. It had moved, which was odd because she knew she left the door all the way swung open. And she said that's when she started to hear this scratching sound. And then the sound of footsteps. Boom, 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 walking down the hallway. She said it got right to her doorway, and she started to hear kind of this weird moaning, groaning, kind of raspy sound. And she said she called out to her roommate, hey, is that you? What are you doing? She didn't hear a response. So she gets up, she goes over to the doorway, and she looks out. There's no one there. This happens 2 or 3 more times where she hears these footsteps and she can hear this moaning and groaning sound. So finally she said, this must just all be in my head. I'm freaking myself out. I'm going to go back to sleep. So she lays down and she falls asleep. But about an hour later, she wakes up, and when she turns over in the bed and she looks at the doorway, she said there was a woman in this big, tall, brimmed black hat. She didn't have a face, and she was wearing some sort of weird black cloth around her. And she said she tried to scream, but she couldn't move, and it felt like something was holding her down. And whatever it was, she could not move at all. She said that's when all of a sudden the hallway light turned on, and her roommate come down the hallway to use the bathroom. And whatever this was, it was gone. She could move again. She ran out of the bedroom, runs to her roommate, tells him what happened. And the roommate just kind of gives her this strange look. And he says, about 2 years ago, I had the same exact experience. But it's weird. When I started having this thing, I started seeing the same thing as you. I would close my door at night, and it stopped happening. And so she said that for the period of time that she lived at this apartment, she would sleep with the door closed. So what do you think? Does sleeping at night with the door closed keep us safe? Payson, Arizona always gives me weird vibes. I don't know what it is about that place, but every time I go there, I feel uneasy. Now, it's this beautiful mountain town, but it's also very secluded. And it happens to be home to one of the most famous alien abduction cases. But there was a really creepy story that I heard out of the Payson area. There was this man named John. John said that his grandfather owned this 100-acre ranch outside of Payson. And he said he had hired this Native American man to take care of his sheep. And he lived there on this ranch in a small trailer. Well, one day, John's grandfather goes out to check on this man. And so he drives through the mountains out to his ranch. And when he arrives to the trailer, he is shocked to see that all of his sheep have been slaughtered and they are missing their skin. Something had basically taken the fur off. And he immediately thinks that something is wrong. So he jumps out of his truck and he goes to the trailer and he finds that it's locked. He starts banging on the door, calling for this man. He can't get in. So he goes around to a window, he breaks out the window, and he gets inside the trailer. And there he finds this man huddled in the corner, terrified, shaking, and in very bad shape. And he said this man kept saying this one word over and over again, and he couldn't understand what he was saying. It was his language, and he didn't know what it meant. So he tries talking to this guy, but the guy is just in too bad of shape. So he gets him in his truck, and he says, I need to get him somewhere and get him some help. He starts leaving the trailer, starts going down this mountainous road, and all of a sudden, he looks out the right side of the window, and he sees something running alongside the truck. He describes it as a deer that's been flipped inside out, and it is running on two legs. And it was keeping pace with his truck, and he's going about 45 miles an hour. He said this thing kept following them, and he, accelerated up to 60, up to 70, and it was still keeping pace with him. He said that's when this man started saying that same word over and over again that he was saying in the trailer. And he realized he is saying what he thinks this thing is. He's calling it by its name or whatever it is. Finally, this thing runs in front of the truck. His grandfather swerves, goes off the mountain, and they crash. The man who worked for his grandfather, he passed away. And so he was never able to talk to him about what had happened. His grandfather managed to live to tell the tale. But shortly after that, his grandfather sold that ranch and would never go back to that place.
If you've ever watched Supernatural, then you've probably heard about Stoll Cemetery. People have claimed that this is the literal gateway to hell, but it's probably not that serious. Stoll, Kansas was a very normal town. That was until 1974 when an article at the University of Kansas, the student paper, came out with an article about strange occurrences happening at the Stoll Cemetery. This sparked an entire urban legend about how Stoll Cemetery was haunted and how creepy things happen here. People have claimed that from the beginning, Stoll's history is so entrenched in black magic that it would be impossible for this not to be a haunted location. Some people have claimed that the original town name was actually Skull, Kansas instead of Stoll, Kansas, but this is incorrect. It was actually named after Sylvester Stoll, who was the first postmaster. Now, the post office closed in 1908 and slowly the town disappeared. There was a church at this cemetery, and some people believe that it was the focus of satanic worship. Others have also claimed that there was a half human child born to a woman that was involved in a cult that was in the area. But the baby only lived a few days, but they still say that a small baby ghost can be seen walking around. There's another story about two men who went to visit Stoll Cemetery in the middle of the night. They said that they were hit by a very strong wind, and when they went back to their car, it was facing the other direction and on the other side of the highway. But this isn't the only person who has claimed to have a very strange experience with some wind. Another man said that he was in the church while it was still standing when he was also hit with a very strong wind, but this wind basically pinned him down. He couldn't move for a while. Others have claimed to have been pinned down or grabbed by something, just something creepy going on at this cemetery. As far as it being the gateway to hell, some people have claimed that there is a staircase that will materialize twice a year, once on the spring equinox and once on Halloween, and this is how Satan comes to roam amongst the living. They also say that if you walk down these steps, if you decide to turn around in the middle of walking down these steps, that it will take you weeks to get back up to the top. That's if the devil doesn't catch you first. Allegedly, several celebrities have also visited the area, like Ariana Grande, who said that she felt sick and overwhelmed when she was there in 2013. Kurt Cobain allegedly also made it a mission to visit every time he played in Lawrence. And probably the most famous legend is that of Pope John Paul II, who allegedly redirected his plane to not fly over Stoll, Kansas because of its alleged demonic activity. Now, I'm not saying that the area is not haunted, I'm just saying that I don't think it's the gateway to hell. It has attracted so much attention, in fact, that the local police has to basically watch the area 24/7 because there's been so much vandalism that has gone on and it is now completely closed to the public. But what are your thoughts on it? Do you think that it's the actual gateway to hell, or is it all just a legend? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more spooky things.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This one was sent into my DMs, but the sender chose to remain anonymous, but is very open to hearing what you guys think about this. I've told a few ghost stories on my page, however, I really do want to know what others think. I'll start off by saying, as kids, me and my little sister made friends with my mom's dead high school best friend. This is important to the story I'm going to tell. When we were young, like 10 and 4, we lived in this rundown apartment that was so bad in the winter we would have to make sure snow didn't get in. For example, one time we literally would reach out our window to the tree to break branches for a make-believe sword fight. My mom was a single mom and was doing her best after getting out of an abusive relationship. We are very proud of her. One day after school, she had planned what we called an honor roll party. This was fun because all my friends who got good grades were able to come celebrate. This involved some older girls from daycare and younger ones. It was very inclusive and my sister was super cute, so everyone would come to have fun. We did arts and crafts, and the night was a blast until we went to bed. I was laying in bed when I saw a face in my wall. What? Seeing things wasn't new to me in any way. I've been tormented from a young age by entities, so I just rolled over. What do you mean? I don't know that I could ever just get used to something like that to the point where I'm just like, I still could not sleep. And so slowly, as eyes do, my eyes started to see random things in my room. And so I yet again turn over, knowing that it was my mind looking to trick me. This is when I saw it yet again. The face in the wall, and this time more clearly. I could make out that it was a man's face. The face had bushy eyebrows, a short stubby beard. It was different tints of orange. Still though, I was in a room full of other girls and I was not going to be a baby and run to my mom. Instead, I said a small prayer and started falling asleep. I would say the same prayer often when I felt like I was being harassed, and rarely did it work. But this night, it randomly seemed to. However, throughout the night, I woke up sweating. I had a dream, but I don't remember it, to be honest. But the minute I opened my eyes, it looked like there was a knife hanging over my head. What? At this point, I screamed, waking everyone up. The lights were on so fast, everyone panning the room, wondering what had just happened. By the time the lights were on, though, the knife was gone. It seemed so real, I didn't even know what to say. I looked around and started asking them if they saw it, and to please tell me that they saw it too, but no one did, just me. Can't imagine being young and having a sleepover and having something so scary happen to you, and all you want is for someone to just confirm that this happened to them too, so that you don't feel like you're crazy or you don't feel like you're alone. It really does at some point just turn into desperation for somebody else to experience the things that you're experiencing, because eventually either you start thinking that you're crazy or you start to feel like something is targeting you. Because of this incident, it solidified me being weird from then on, as the room was packed with girls and it was very embarrassing for me. I felt like it was a bad dream that I was somehow completely awake for. About a week or so later, my sister was playing with her tea set when me and my mom walked over, and asked her who she was playing with. This is when she said, Jenny. Who's Jenny? Jenny was my mom's high school friend. And then she went on to describe the details that she would have never known, including the rope marks that wouldn't be in a single picture. What? What? Later that day, she told me Jenny won't let anything happen to us, but she didn't know we were in trouble. For the next 5 to 7 weeks, we would have strange things happen just to remind us she was there, but she didn't stay long. Those were the most peaceful weeks I remember in that apartment. What do you mean? I feel like at the beginning, it was said that they were friends with her. Maybe she meant Warren. Let me say. Oh, they made friends with her. You made friends with her ghost, is what you meant? Oh my God. You made friends with her ghost. That's what you meant in the beginning. I thought you meant you guys were friends before and then she passed. No. You made friends with her ghost.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent to my email, and if you have any paranormal experiences, ghost stories, or scary stories that you'd like for me to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. This started back when I was 6 years old. I used to live in a complex. I've always been able to see, hear, and dream about the paranormal. I used to see dark shadow figures sometimes. It was like a little kid or a baby, and at other times it was a big, dark shadow that looked like a man. I have 4 younger sisters, but at the time I only had 3 siblings. We used to have a high chair that sometimes I'd often see a shadow sitting in. In the same apartment, my mom cleansed the house with sage. She said when she cleansed the home, she heard a deep growl in the downstairs bedroom, and she got extremely tired after that. When I turned 13, I had a few family deaths. My grandpa, who I'll call Cole, gotten into trouble and was murdered. We held his funeral in my grandma's house, who I'll call Sandy. My grandma Sandy's house always felt uneasy. She wasn't the nicest of grandmas. Grandpa Cole was her brother. She had called all the closest relatives over to spend time together. Me and my 4 sisters, 2 of my uncles, and 3 younger cousins were out playing in the dark. I recall feeling a sense of dread, so I started lighting candles. 13-year-old me thought it would light the way and keep the shadows back. As I lit the last candle, I saw a big shadow figure trying to intimidate me. I thought I was seeing stuff, so I looked back and forth a couple of times, and when I turned around the last time, it just disappeared. Flash forward a couple of years. We move into a big 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. I've had very vivid nightmares in this house. I often hear whispers. My parents would often tell me I was stressed, and every now and then the electronics would act up. This house always gave me the heebie-jeebies, but you get used to it. When we first moved in, my youngest sister was about 2 years old. I was up late one night. I had to get up to go to the bathroom. No one else was up. It was a school night. My little sister was downstairs with my parents. As I'm using the bathroom, I see this pale little figure with gray skin, black eyes, long black hair duck around the corner. I thought it was my little sister that snuck up the stairs, also needing the bathroom. So I was confused and called out her name. I got no response, so I went to go see if she was hiding around the corner, and she wasn't there. I thought it was odd, but I wouldn't say it was out of character, as she liked hiding to scare us. I go back to my room, get back into bed. I look at the corner of my room, and I swear I saw a little figure hunched in the corner. I turned up my brightness on my tablet and turned it to the corner of the room, and nothing was there. My mom also had nightmares in this house. She told me that one of her dreams was of her walking along this frozen over blood river. She had all of us, me and my 4 younger siblings, walking hand in hand to this big archway in the middle of the river. She got to the river, and something told her to walk through it. She was about to, but stopped. She said it just didn't feel right. Before she woke up, my dad was saying that she was crying in her sleep, So he turned around to wake her up and ask her what was wrong, and as he did, he saw a shadow walk away from her side of the bed and left the room. She woke up crying and scared. We called this room the portal room because there was always so much activity in there. I still have a lot more stories about this house, as I still live in it with my boyfriend. Please let me know if you want to hear more. I believe there's spirits here that mimic a little girl.
Something walked into my grandmother's room and stopped right beside her bed late at night in the Appalachian Mountains, and there was no one else in the house but us. If you have watched that video and you're here from that, I do want to let y'all know that I did ask her about it immediately after this happened. I was in the basement and her bedroom was directly above me. I walked up to her bedroom after I checked the front door, which was locked still. There was no one in the house. And I said, "Nana, who were you talking to?" And she said, "What are you talking about?" She didn't remember anything that I'd said. She did suffer from sundowners, and she started to have Alzheimer's closer to when she passed away. And it was a while after this. It wasn't immediately after this happened. But she didn't know what I was talking about. Whoever she was talking to that I heard walk on the floor to her bedroom and heard her say on the baby monitor, "I've been waiting for you." She didn't know who it was. There was no one in the house. Of course I went and asked her, "Can y'all recommend some kind of leash for me? I have these two dogs. This is Athena, this is Blake. They are so hard to walk together, and this hurts my hands so much."
The Hat Man is such an interesting topic to me because back in the 70s, sleep clinics started to notice this pattern amongst their patients. Over the course of the next 20 years or so, they noticed that a large amount of the patients that were seeking help with their sleep all described seeing the same figure. A dark, shadowy figure wearing a top hat and standing in the doorway or in the corner of their room watching them sleep. And what researchers found most interesting was that these reports all came from people who had never heard of each other, spanning across different countries, cultures, and religions. And none of these people had an explanation for who or what this entity was. They had no name for it either. So doctors specializing in sleep wanted to study this phenomenon because they believed it showed one of the clearest examples of how the human brain constructs hallucinations in a really predictable way. Because why were all of these people feeling a presence when none existed, and why was this specific entity consistent across a spectrum of humanity? But unfortunately, their studies didn't explain a whole lot about this either. They determined it to just be a hallucination that occurs during sleep paralysis, where your body is pretty much paralyzed, but you're fully conscious. But being classified as a hallucination by doctors doesn't stop people from believing that the Hat Man is a real entity. Some people have even claimed to have captured pictures of him, and if that's true, then that begs the question, how are we seeing him on film if he's just a figment of our imagination?
One of Kansas City's oldest houses is also considered one of the most haunted locations. It was built in 1858 by John Bristol Warnall. But not long after its construction, the Civil War broke out, and the Battle of Westport that took place in 1864 took place just a couple of blocks away from here. The Warnall Mansion soon became a hospital where not just Union soldiers were treated, but also Confederate soldiers. But unfortunately, not everyone could be saved, and now they think that some of these spirits still roam the halls. Visitors and workers alike have often seen all kinds of things like shadow figures, they've felt people touching them, all kinds of strange things. Some residents have even claimed to smell tobacco filling the rooms, but probably the most chilling is the stories of the Union soldiers or Confederate soldiers that are seen guarding the house. They've been seen guarding the doors and patrolling the balconies, which honestly I think is terrifying. Currently, you can experience this house by candlelight. They'll walk through and tell you all the ghost stories and those kinds of things. Is that something you would be interested in doing? Because personally, I'd be terrified. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's actually haunted, or is it all just a story? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and follow for more spooky things.
Central Texas, there's a lot of creepy stuff that happens. Now, there was this guy named Nathan who used to drive home late at night down this rural highway that cut through this forest. And he said one night he got off of work, it was around 9-10 o'clock, and he was driving down the highway. He said he was about halfway home when all of a sudden he sees this man step out of the woods, walk across the highway, and he swerves, almost hits this guy. The guy takes off into the other side, into the woods. And he said he was kind of puzzled because this was out in the middle of nowhere. There was no one that lived out there. Like, he couldn't figure out where this guy had come from. Well, this happens to him a couple nights in a row, where this guy runs out in front of him and he almost hits him. So he said finally he got tired of it, and he's like, next time I see this guy, if he walks in front of my car, I'm gonna slam on the brakes, I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna confront him. So he found himself again driving home from work on this highway, and as he was going home, he said once again this man came out of the woods and walked right in front of his vehicle. This time he slammed on his brakes and he jumped out of his car. He runs over to this guy who stops and is right there next to the wood line. And he says, hey man, what's the deal? Like, why are you running in front of my car? Are you trying to get hit? Like, what's going on? Guy didn't say anything. He's just turned around looking at the woods. So he says to him again, like, hey man, what's your deal? Like, what are you doing out here? Who are you? So that's when this guy slowly turned around. And as he got a view of his face, he said he was looking at himself. He said not only did this man look exactly like him, he was wearing the exact same clothing. And he was just sitting there smiling at him. So he jumps in his truck and he gets out of there. He said never seen him again, but that terrified him. Dogs and cats see ghosts. Can they see into the spirit world? Can they perceive things that we humans cannot with our eyes? Now, there was this woman named Deborah. Deborah was from Cleveland, Ohio. She said her and her family lived in this home, and they had this family dog. Now his name was Jet. And Jet, every night, would sleep in their bed, and he would stay there all night long and basically protect them. But she said this one night, for some reason, at 3 a.m., Jet got up out of bed, and he went downstairs. So she thought that was strange. She gets out of bed, and she starts looking around the house. And that's when she finds the dog. He is going from room to room. When he gets to the base of the doorway, he stops, and he looks in there, kind of scans the room, and then moves on to the next room. And he went to every single room in the house. And soon after this, every night he was waking up at 3 a.m., walking around this house. Well, eventually Jet passes away, and they get a new dog. And this new dog, after some time, right, he starts waking up at 3 a.m., going from room to room, looking in the rooms like he was seeing something. Then she said one night she heard some kind of commotion coming from downstairs. And she said it sounded like the dog was playing with someone. So she made her way down the stairs. She goes into the living room. She sees the dog looking over into the corner. And as she turns her head to where he was staring, she sees her dog Jet, and she sees a man standing next to him. So she screams, and her husband comes running down the stairs. And he turns the lights on. This man, Jet, they're both gone. But she was completely terrified, and she believed that those dogs had the ability to see spirits in their house at night. There's another woman named Jan. Jan was from Los Angeles. She said that her and her family, they got this house for almost nothing. And when they first were buying this place, the realtor explained to them that the sellers wanted to make it clear that there was a woman who passed away in this one bedroom. She fell over in the corner, and it was right in this spot. And that's kind of the reason the house is selling for so cheap. So they said, we didn't really care about that. We weren't freaked out. So they move in. Well, when she brings her cats over, right, she starts noticing that her cats are going in this bedroom and they're laying on the spot where this lady had passed away. She said one night she heard her cats meowing really loudly. And she goes and she finds them in this bedroom. And they're in the spot where this lady had passed away. And they're clawing at the floor. They are meowing. They are going crazy like there's something there. And she said her whole time living in that house, those cats would always be in that spot. And they would always act like they were playing with someone. So what do you think? Do animals have the ability to see the supernatural?
I'm back with another ghost story. So this user sent in their story and it happened in their home. So the story happened when this person was 11 years old. I had to stay at home alone until 11 p.m. because my parents had to go to a wedding. It was after dusk and the lights in my room and my whole house was off. I was just scrolling through TikTok when I smelled a scent of jasmine. I thought that my sister was putting on perfume, but I remember that she went to Korea just yesterday, and so there's no one in the house currently. I just shrugged it off until I heard someone or something knocking on my door. It was a woman's voice calling out to him. It went, "Adik, bukalah pintu ni, ibu nak masuk." Basically, the mom asked him to open the door because she wants to enter the room. And he was shocked, because he knows that his mom doesn't talk to him like that. So I just stayed in bed, not knowing what to do. She then started knocking on my door more violently. I didn't know who or what she was, but I knew it was a Pontianak knocking on my door. Or just any female jinn at this point. I turned on Ayat Kursi on my phone, and the knocking stopped. For context, Ayat Kursi is a Quranic verse that people read for protection against evil spirits and things like that. I waited until my parents came home, and then I told them what happened. Then the next day they brought an ustad over, and we did some praying around the house. The ustad asked whether he could search the house for anything, and when they searched the storeroom, the ustad found something wrapped with a small black plastic. He opened it and found that the previous owner of the house used the storeroom for doing black magic. We did some prayers, and the disturbance of the Pontianak was gone, nowhere to be heard or seen. I'm glad that went away very easily, because most of the time it requires multiple visits. Anyway, if you guys have a story to share, drop them a link in bio and I'll check them out.
This woman chases down a hit-and-run driver trying to do the right thing and ends up unaliving him instead. So one afternoon in 2019, Hannah Payne is driving home from work, just minding her business, when out of nowhere, she sees this red pickup truck speeding down the road ahead of her, going way too fast. And then in just a split second, everything changes. The red pickup speeds through a red light, but in that same moment, a big semi-truck is also going through the intersection from the other direction, and bam, they crash into each other. And Hannah, in complete shock of what she just witnessed, immediately pulls to the side of the road, grabs her phone, and dials 911. And she tells the dispatcher, "Hey, I just witnessed an accident. Can we please send someone over here ASAP?" And the dispatcher's like, "Okay, ma'am, we appreciate you calling this in. We'll get somebody out there right away." Beautiful, done. She did her part. That should be it, right? Well, no, because for some reason, Hannah, who had dreams of becoming a police officer, she felt like this was her opportunity to step up and put those dreams to use. So she gets out of the car while the dispatcher is still on the phone, and she starts walking towards the red pickup truck that crashed in the middle of the road. But as she's approaching the truck, she suddenly sees the driver's side door swing open and a man climbing out who is clearly not walking normally. It's 62-year-old Kenneth Herring, and he's stumbling and swaying on his feet, looking around with this dazed, confused expression on his face, like he has absolutely no idea where he is, what just happened, or how he got there. And Hannah's looking at this man's strange behavior, and to her, it really looks like Kenneth was driving while intoxicated, and that must be why he was driving so recklessly and caused this crash in the first place. So Hannah's thinking to herself that she has to go stop this man and make sure that he is still here when police arrive, because she can't have this drunk driver just running away from the scene of an accident that he caused. But as she's walking towards him with that intention, Kenneth maybe sees her approaching and realizes what's happening, and he quickly stumbles back inside his truck, slams the door shut, and he drives off like he's trying to escape. And she's like, "Oh my god, he's trying to leave the crime scene. We need to get his license plate before he disappears completely." So Hannah runs back to her car as fast as she can, and she's yelling at the 911 dispatcher, who is still on the phone, by the way, "I'm gonna chase after him. I'm gonna get his license plate so you can track him down." And the dispatcher's like, "Okay, ma'am, but only get his plate number. Do not interfere or try to stop him yourself. Do you understand me? We just want you to be safe." But Hannah isn't really listening to that warning, because she has already convinced herself that this man is intoxicated and dangerous. And she says back, "Ma'am, he is drunk. I'm sorry, but I am not gonna let him go, because he'll just cause another accident if someone doesn't stop him." And the dispatcher tries again with even more force in her voice this time, saying very clearly, "Hannah, do not interfere with this situation. We have police officers on the way who are trained to handle this." But Hannah is already full speed chasing him down the road with her foot pressed on that gas pedal, her hands gripping the steering wheel, and her eyes locked onto that red pickup ahead of her. And at some point during this chase, she sees Kenneth about to take this right turn at an intersection up ahead, so she steps on her gas even harder to close the distance between them. Her car launches forward with a burst of speed, and she makes a sharp right turn in front of Kenneth's vehicle, cutting him off completely and blocking any escape route that he might have had. Hannah then jumps out of her car while holding onto a weapon. She runs up to the truck's window and starts screaming, "Get out of the car! Get out of the car now! I have police on the phone! Get out!" And Kenneth is yelling back like, Who are you? You do not tell me what to do. And the dispatcher on the end of the line is hearing all of this chaos, and she's like, ma'am, no, stop, get back in your car. What are you doing? But Hannah just keeps on screaming at Kenneth to get out, and this man is just sitting there trying to get her to leave him alone. But then out of nowhere, she grabs onto her weapon and she points it directly at him, and she's screaming over and over, I will you if you don't get out of the car right now. And Kenneth, seeing the weapon pointed at him, panics and immediately tries to grab it away from her. He's pulling it away, and Hannah's tugging back at it and twisting it, and bam! All of a sudden, the gun goes off. And in the mix of all the struggle, Kenneth accidentally pulled the trigger on himself. And Hannah's standing there completely shocked, and she just grabs the phone and she tells the dispatcher, ma'am, he just pulled the trigger on my gun and himself. And the dispatcher, who's very upset, is like, Hannah, you were not supposed to follow him. Kenneth Herring, at just 62, died from that gunshot wound on the side of the road while waiting for paramedics to arrive. And it would turn out that Hannah was completely wrong about the entire situation. He wasn't drunk like she had assumed. He was actually having a diabetic episode, which explained his confusion and erratic behavior. So that means she did all of this to an innocent man who was having a medical emergency and desperately needed help, not confrontation. In the end, Hannah Payne was arrested, and in 2023, she was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. And it all happened because she refused to listen when the 911 dispatcher told her multiple times not to interfere, to let the trained professionals handle it, to just get the license plate and let it go. Sometimes doing the right thing means knowing when to take a step back and trust that help is on the way. And sometimes playing the hero can end in tragedy. That's all for today. I love y'all. Group hug.
Y'all need to be careful on those fetish websites if you're using them, because this is the second case in a few months I'm covering of a person using FetLife to kill someone. The first case involved a woman who flew all the way from the UK to Florida to have a man consensually kill her. Now, there is currently a trial going on in Virginia for a man who tried to have his wife murdered using FetLife. Like I said, the trial is still going on, so this is all for educational purposes only and allegedly, but based on the evidence, this is what it sounds like happened. Brendan Bainfield and his wife Christine have a 4-year-old daughter named Valerie, so they hired an au pair named Juliana to take care of Valerie, and Brendan quickly fell in love with her. They began having an affair, and rather than divorce Christine like any normal person would, Brendan thought that he would try to commit the perfect murder instead, because he was a federal officer. He worked for the IRS, so he thought he was smarter than everybody else. It sounds like Brendan knew he would be the first suspect when his wife turned up dead, so he didn't want to get his hands dirty with this. He also didn't want to hire a hitman because hitmen talk. So he needed to find someone who would not be able to tell anyone what actually happened and that Brendan was behind it. Allegedly, Brendan set up an email account for his wife on his wife's computer and then used that email address to set up an account for her on FetLife. It sounds like Juliana was also in on this plan, just to be clear. She was just as much a part of it as he was. So once they set up this fake profile for his wife and mark it as her being interested in BDSM and other things, they make a post that she is looking for a very violent RAPE encounter. Several men respond, and Brendan and Juliana weed through all the applicants. And Brendan is making sure that all the communication on FetLife is happening while his wife is at home, because in the future, if people can prove that she wasn't home while it happened, they would be able to prove that it wasn't her on the account. Now, Brendan and Juliana rejected several men who were interested in fulfilling this fantasy for Christine because they wanted to meet up in person first. Understandably, they were like, if I am going to go through with fulfilling your fantasy, I need to be able to meet you in person first, and we need to be able to talk through a few things. And every single person who responded to the post and said they needed to meet in person before showing up to Christine's house with a weapon was completely cut off. They did not respond to them. They weren't interested in having anybody who needed to meet Christine first. And then they hear from Joseph Ryan. And Joe Ryan says that he is okay with moving forward with just a phone call with Christine, because she says she doesn't want to take away from the excitement of having her fantasy fulfilled by meeting him ahead of time. And this is how we know without a doubt that Juliana was involved, because she was the only woman in this plan. She was the only one who would be able to talk to Joe Ryan on the phone. The day comes, it's around 7 a.m., and Brendan leaves for supposedly a very important business meeting, and Juliana takes Valerie to the zoo. So they leave the house, and Christine is still in bed, and they have arranged this encounter for around 7:20 a.m. There is camera footage of Brendan going to McDonald's, going through the drive-thru a few times, and then going inside and going to the bathroom and staying in there for 8 minutes. Juliana then calls him while he is still in the bathroom, and he rushes home. While Brendan was at McDonald's, Juliana and Valerie had left the house, but then Juliana realized she forgot the lunches for the day, so they turn around, and she sees that somebody has parked in the driveway. In the messages with Joe Ryan, they had told him, when you come, park in the driveway. Juliana follows the plan, allegedly, and tries to call Christine, but Christine does not pick up. The reason Christine does not pick up or even hear her phone is because her phone is turned off and in a drawer in the bar cart downstairs, which to me just proves that she had no idea that Joe Ryan was coming, because if you knew a man was going to break into your home at 7:20, wouldn't you have your phone on you just in case he needed you? Just in case he had a question, got lost, anything. Oh, by the way, the reason that we have this whole story that I'm telling you right now is because Juliana eventually turned on Brendan, and this is the story that she is telling. Brendan gets home, and he and Juliana go inside the house, and they hear what is happening upstairs. Remember, Christine is asleep upstairs, and she has no idea about any of this going on, so she sees a man with a knife coming toward her and trying to play out a fantasy, and she's terrified. Joe Ryan thinks that she's into it. He thinks that she's the one who set all this up. So she's screaming and running, and he thinks it's all part of it. It does make me wonder if during the conversation with Joe Ryan, if he ever asked for like a safe word or anything like that. It doesn't really sound like it. But again, it was Christine asking for all of this, and he was, in his mind, fulfilling her fantasy. So Juliana and Brendan leave Valerie in the basement. They go upstairs, and Christine shouts out, "Brendan, he has a gun," and Brendan shoots Joe Ryan with his own firearm. Brendan then picks up the knife that Joe Ryan had dropped. He goes and sits on his wife, and he stabs Christine to death. Brendan still thinks he's smarter than everyone, and he thinks that he is committing the perfect murder. So they don't call 911 right away because he stages the crime scene, he moves the bodies, he moves the murder weapon, he makes sure everything is perfect and makes sure that his story lines up with Juliana's. If you're wondering what Brendan's version of events are, he says that he walks into the room. Joe Ryan has already stabbed Christine several times, so he shoots Joe Ryan and then tries to save his wife, but it's too late. I personally believe that Brendan is 100% guilty, and I also believe that Juliana was involved in the plan. Like I said, they needed a woman's voice to convince Joe Ryan to come to the house, and she played a part in drawing him there and setting Christine up. My heart breaks for Christine, but I also really feel bad for Joe Ryan because in his mind, he was fulfilling a fantasy for a woman, and he did everything right according to the KINK community. He got consent. He talked to her first to make sure that he was doing what she wanted, and I would imagine making sure that he didn't overstep at all or do anything that she wasn't into. In his mind, this was a consensual encounter between two adults, and he was ultimately just a pawn in Brendan and Juliana's scheme, and because of that, he is dead. Like I said, the trial is still ongoing, so I will let you know when we get updates. Oh, by the way, if you were wondering just how much of an SOB this guy is, he brought up in court, in front of the jury, that he has had multiple affairs. Nobody asked him that. He didn't have to offer up that information. It seems like he just does not realize how evil he is. Or he doesn't care about anyone but himself. And he hasn't cared about his wife, especially, for a very long time. So yeah, like I said, please be careful on those fetish websites. And if you're going to use them, make sure you're talking to who you think you're talking to. And please make sure you have a plan B if you do meet up with anyone, just in case something goes wrong.
She's known as the most evil stepmother in America after what she did to her 10-year-old stepdaughter. Alisa Baker, as a teenage girl, was known to be very manipulative and cunning. She would use her charm and good looks to get whatever she wanted, and I actually saw a lot of comparison to Allison from Pretty Little Liars. Elisa really latched on to people with disabilities or that were vulnerable in some way. She thought that she had a better chance of getting what she wanted from them. And in her life, Elisa would be married 7 times. At 16 years old, she dropped out of high school. She also got pregnant for the first time, but her daughter's father was not in the picture. Around this time, she ended up just bumping into an old boyfriend, and 1 week after reconnecting, they were engaged. Elisa moves very fast. They were both only 17 years old, and the plan was to tell this boy's family that Elisa's baby was his child. But only a few weeks after tying the knot, the boy started having some regrets. He did not think that he was ready at 17 years old to be a stepfather and a husband, so the marriage was annulled. Elisa then married a 19-year-old boy that was living with disabilities after a very serious car accident. Together, they had 2 children, a son and a daughter. They were living with Elisa's mother-in-law, so her husband's mother, but Elisa was caught stealing. She also threatened to kill her baby and burn down her mother-in-law's house. She ended up leaving that husband, but when she left with only her 2 daughters and just left her son behind. A few months later, she was married to her 3rd husband, but this marriage did not last very long. And a few months after that, she was married to her 4th husband. Her 4th husband was deaf, and he found it very hard dating and finding a partner that would accept him. So when he found this beautiful woman, Elisa, that wanted to marry him, be with him, he thought that he was the luckiest guy in the entire world. And when Elisa married him, she actually wasn't even technically divorced to her 3rd husband. And it was around this time that Elisa began lying and telling people that her 8-year-old daughter had cancer so that people would give Elisa more attention and sympathy. And she would actually push her daughter around the neighborhood in a wheelchair just to get more attention. Elisa left her 4th husband after she was caught cheating, and when she left with all of their belongings, including her husband's hearing aids, because she was such a terrible person. Elisa was very physically abusive to all of her husbands, and with her 5th husband, this was no different. Her 5th husband was actually the only husband to leave her, and when he did, he left her without even filing for divorce because he was too scared of her to even face her in court. When Elisa married husband number 6, she was in her mid-30s and he was only 20 years old. And Elisa actually married husband number 6 less than 1 year after she married husband number 5. This not only shows how quick husband number 5 left Elisa, but also how quickly she moved on and got married. She got married 2 times in less than 1 year. They were actually together for 10 years before he caught her cheating, and she left him once again without getting a divorce. And this brings us to 2008 when Elisa meets her 7th husband, Adam Baker. Elisa actually met Adam in an IMVU chat room, like no joke. Do you guys remember this game? They fell for each other and their little characters, and Elisa was actually planning to move to be with Adam. Elisa lived in America and Adam lived in Australia, so she was actually going to be moving across the entire world to be with him. Adam was the single father to a little girl named Zara. And before ever even meeting the stepmother from hell, Zara Baker had a very hard life. She was born on November 16th in 1999, and just a few weeks after she was born, her mother left. At only 5 years old, Zara was diagnosed with bone cancer, and because of this, she actually had to have her left leg amputated. She went into remission after this, and Zara was just like the most optimistic, positive, brave, strong little girl ever. But only 2 years later, at 7 years old, the cancer came back, and this time it spread. It spread like all over. It spread to her lungs. She had to have part of one of her lungs removed, and she also lost her hearing. She beat it again, and only a little bit later, at 8 years old, Elisa moved to Australia to be Zara's dad, Adam. Adam and Zara lived with his parents. They helped out a lot during Zara's cancer, and they immediately hated Elisa. But Adam was head over heels for Elisa. Only a few months later, they were married, and then Elisa, Adam, and Zara all moved to America. Zara's grandparents were absolutely devastated, and Zara's entire life was completely disrupted. Her school, her doctors, her friends, her grandparents, her home, her country, she had to leave it all behind. This girl is only 8 years old, and she's already lost her mom, her leg, part of her lung, her hearing, and now she's about to lose everything else. She's already gone through so much, and it was sadly only the beginning. They all moved to Elisa's hometown in Hickory, North Carolina. There, Adam was working extremely long hours, leaving his daughter Zara home alone with her new stepmother Elisa all of the time. I didn't know where to put this in the script, so I'm just going to put this here. Zara, who's been through so much at 8 years old already, would get a lot of attention because of her story and how strong she was and everything that she had been through and how she was always still positive. Well, Elisa did not like that this 8-year-old girl got so much attention that Elisa actually began lying back in America, saying that she had cancer, so she would steal some of the attention away from Zara. And Elisa was also really mistreating Zara, and it became very horrific abuse. And this is a huge warning to everyone. What this little girl went through, what I'm going to tell you, is very horrific. And remember, she has a prosthetic leg, and her stepmother Elisa would force her to run up and down a very steep hill for hours to the point that she would just pass out from exhaustion. Lisa was also very physically abusive towards Zara. She would hit Zara all of the time. One time when Elisa hit Zara, she actually missed, and she hit Zara's prosthetic leg, and she hit the prosthetic leg so hard that Elisa actually broke her hand. That's how hard she was hitting this little girl. Zara would go to school covered in bruises, and she would have black eyes. School staff and neighbors were always reporting the abuse to DCS, Department of Child Safety, but nothing was ever done. If DCS would come for a home visit, Elisa would just tell them that Zara was clumsy, and that's why she always was covered in bruises. Elisa pulled Zara from school and then eventually just stopped letting her leave the house, so all the reports to DCS would stop. She was also forcing Zara to just sleep on a sheet on the floor of the attic. And what happens next is very confusing, so I'm going to do my best to explain it the best I can, but just bear with me. At one point, Elisa, Adam, and Zara move into a new home, and their landlord was Adam's boss, and this man was very wealthy and well off. I'm going to bring him up quite a bit, but I'm just going to refer to him as landlord/boss. On October 9th, 2010, Elisa calls 911 to report that there was a small fire on their property. The fire department comes and puts out the fire, but as they're leaving, they find a ransom note on the windshield of Adam's car. The ransom note was addressed to the landlord/Adam's boss, claiming that they kidnapped his daughter. So officers go to landlord/boss's house, and his daughter was completely fine. 9 hours later, Adam calls 911 to report that his daughter Zara is missing. Okay, are you still with me? The theory was, or at least the story that Elisa and Adam were telling, since Elisa, Adam, and Zara were living in the home that landlord/boss owned, and he was very wealthy, they believed that the kidnappers thought that landlord/boss lived in this home. The kidnappers set that small fire on the property so they could distract the parents, so then broke into the home and kidnapped who they thought was landlord/boss's daughter so they could get ransom money out of this really wealthy guy, but they really kidnapped Zara. Does that make sense? But somehow it took Elisa and Adam 9 hours after a ransom note was found on their property to realize that 10-year-old Zara was missing. Right away, things were looking very suspicious. Elisa and Adam had two very different stories. Elisa said that she last saw Zara the night before when she put her to bed, and Adam said he hadn't seen his daughter in 3 days. And then Adam changed his story and said he actually hadn't seen his daughter in 15 days. During a search of the home, a lot of blood that was confirmed to be Zara's blood was found splattered on her bedroom walls. And then someone repainted her bedroom and just repainted over the blood. Cadaver dogs were brought onto the property, and they alerted that there were human remains at one point in Elisa's car. Elisa was then offered a polygraph test, which she completely failed. So during an interrogation, the officers told Elisa that they were going to charge her with murder and that they were going to fight for the death penalty if she did not confess and tell them where they could find Zara's body. So to avoid the death penalty, Elisa made a confession. Whether or not it's true, let me know what you think. She claims that on September 24th, 2 weeks before Zara was reported missing, Elisa claims that she just went into Zara's bedroom and found the 10-year-old girl on the floor of her bedroom just deceased with no explanation why. Like, this 10-year-old girl just dropped dead with no explanation. And it was Zara's father, Adam, that didn't want to report his daughter's death. So Zara's father, Adam, brought his daughter's body into the bathroom where he dismembered her and then disregarded of her body parts in different places around the city. Elisa told the officers where they could find Zara, but sadly it had been over a month, so not all of Zara could be recovered. Adam adamantly denied having any involvement or knowledge of his daughter's death, and he also said the reason he hadn't seen her in 2 weeks before she disappeared was because he just worked such long hours, he never got a chance to see his daughter. He also said that the day that his daughter died, he was at work for the entire day, and phone records did confirm that Adam, or at least his phone, was at his place of work the entire day. And it was actually Elisa's phone and Elisa's phone only that pinged at all the different places where Zara's body parts were found. As for how Zara died, her stepmother claimed that she just dropped dead. It was some unknown medical reason, but Zara's cause of death was actually listed as homicidal violence. And sadly, unless Elisa decides to tell the truth, we'll probably never know what actually happened to Zara and why or how she died, because Elisa took a plea deal. And as part of her plea deal, Elisa Baker pled guilty to second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 18 years in prison. It was also found out that she was dealing substances, so she was given an additional 10 years for that. Zara's father, Adam, was never found guilty of any crimes in connection to his daughter's death, but to this day, Elisa just continues to say that she's innocent, she did not kill Zara, and that Adam was there when his daughter died and was dismembered, regardless of what phone records say. And just last year in 2025, it was concluded that Elisa had served her entire second-degree murder sentence, and she is now serving that 10-year substance sentence. But after those 10 years are up, she's just free to be back in society. And this entire case is just so unfair, and Elisa Baker really is completely evil. This poor little 10-year-old girl had already gone through more than most adults ever go through in their entire lives. Her own father wasn't even there to protect her, and then she was killed, and her killer won't even give the dignity of telling the truth about her own death. If you made it to the end of this extremely long video, thank you so much for listening to Zara's story. I'm really interested on hearing all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. I'm sure they'll be really strong, and while you're in the comments, just please remember to be respectful, because this is Zara's story, a 10-year-old girl. While you're also in the comments, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to every single one of you that suggested that we cover this case, and I will see you guys all next time in my next video. Please be a good person to your fellow person.
This 18-year-old girl was found bound, gagged, face down in a swamp, and it was her father that put her there. Her murder being some sort of sick honour killing. I'm True Crime Caitlin, and this is the murder of Ryan Al-Najjar. The Al-Najjar family, which consisted of 10 family members, fled from the war in Syria in 2012. One of the sons, who was actually only 15 at the time, managed to make his way to the Netherlands, where he successfully managed to apply for asylum, and so his family were able to join him. The family were placed in a small, cosy, quiet Dutch town. They were given a beautiful 7-bedroom council house along with financial support. Using this financial support, father of the family, Khaled, opened a takeaway business, and it absolutely flourished. 2 of the sons would work for their dad at the pizza shop, and it really seemed like the family were integrating well. They were settling in their new community. At one point, they were even put on the news because they were the, quote, fantastic model family. Things on the inside weren't as they seemed, however. Khaled was a very angry, violent, temperamental person. He would regularly beat his wife and children, all of whom lived under Khaled in fear. They couldn't stick up for themselves, they couldn't back answer him, they couldn't question something that he was saying, or else they would be met with even more violence. Soon, however, Khaled's attention and anger laser focused on his daughter, Ryan. Teenage Ryan was really struggling at her new school and she was experiencing a lot of bullying. Her family were Muslim and they were very traditional. Ryan was expected to conform to their faith, which she usually did. She was described as a good girl who studied the Quran and regularly prayed. However, at school, the other children began to bully Ryan because she would wear a beautiful hijab. Ryan would go to school every day wearing her hijab and she just became a target to the other children who would relentlessly bully her because of it. So she started to not want to wear it anymore. She point blank refused, either because of the peer pressure or just because she didn't want to anymore. But this decision infuriated her father and angered her entire family. They would text each other talking about Ryan, and one of the text messages said, quote, "She's tarnished our reputation." Ryan began to experiment with pretty normal teenage girl things. She developed an interest in makeup, in boys. She started to want to use social media, all of which only added to Khaled's absolute fury that he was feeling towards her. He thought that she was becoming too westernized. On one occasion, during an argument with her father, Khaled would literally tie Ryan up using rope by her wrists. She managed to escape from the house through a bedroom window and ran to a friend's house. She brayed on the door, and when the friend answered, there was Ryan, barefoot with marks on her wrists, telling the friend, quote, "You have to help me. My father wants to kill me." In May 2024, just a couple of weeks after Ryan's 18th birthday, she would be picked up from a friend's house by two of her older brothers, Mahanad and Muhanad, both of whom she trusted. She looked up to her older brothers and she would confide in them with the abuse that she was dealing with from her father. Due to all of the conflict and the violence at home, Ryan actually hadn't been living there for a couple of weeks. She had ran away and was under the care of social services. So on this day in May 2024, Ryan is picked up by two people that she trusted. She is drove to a remote part of a country park where Khaled was waiting for her. She was kicked out of the car and left alone with her father, who would go on to do the unthinkable. On the 28th of May 2024, the body of 18-year-old Ryan Al-Najjar was found in a swampy area of the country park. She was completely wrapped up and had been bound by her wrists and ankles with 18 meters of duct tape. There were signs of suffocation and or strangulation to her neck, and she was discovered face down in a pond where she had drowned. It is likely that Khaled had rendered his daughter unconscious before tying her up and placing her face down in the pond. Later forensic examination of her body would show that Khaled's DNA was under Ryan's fingernails, proving that she had tried to fight her father off. I honestly can't imagine just how terrified she must have felt in those moments. Shortly after murdering his daughter, Khaled would send a text message to one of the family members expressing regret about something, but it's not what you think it is. He said, quote, "My mistake was not digging a hole for her." After murdering his daughter Ryan, literally the very next day, Khaled fled from the Netherlands and went back to Syria. During the trial for the murder of Ryan Al-Najjar, the contempt and the hatred that her family felt towards her became very apparent. Some of the text messages that were sent between different family members were read out in court, and they are absolutely disgusting. Some of them read, quote, "May God let her be killed by a train. I spit on her." And another one said that she was a slut who should be killed. That one came from her mother's phone. It's believed that the motive for Ryan's murder stemmed from the fact that Khaled believed that she was becoming too westernized and that she had refused an arranged marriage. Both of her brothers would be arrested and charged because of their connection to Ryan's murder. CCTV cameras and GPS from their phone showed them going to pick up Ryan and basically delivering her to their father. Each of the brothers would be handed a sentence of 20 years imprisonment. Khaled, who has since remarried and started a new family and a new life in Syria, was convicted with the murder of Ryan. In absentia, he was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. Should he ever return back to Europe or the Netherlands, he will be immediately arrested and forced to serve out this sentence.
I truly do not understand how a house can go on the market with blood stains still on the walls and carpet. A follower sent me this address and asked me to figure out what happened here. Now, the house has already sold, and so all of the home's pictures have been removed from real estate websites. But after a little bit of digging, I was able to find them. Needless to say, they literally sold this house after a brutal unaliving, and someone still bought it for $300,000. Probably unknowing, because the state of New York doesn't require realtors to disclose that information, but if it were me, I would want to know what happened in this house, especially considering the state of it. By now, you're probably wondering what happened here. Well, a 61-year-old man got into a fist fight with his niece's boyfriend just outside of the home. The man's niece and her boyfriend then ran back inside of the home to get away from him, but then the 61-year-old man went to his truck and grabbed a semi-automatic rifle. He went back into their home and shot the boyfriend multiple times in front of his girlfriend. And if that isn't horrific enough, the niece was actually 8 months pregnant with her boyfriend's daughter at the time he was killed.